Okay. Yeah, I don't see it yet. I laughed at myself every time oh, there you are.
Some things.
G, give you announcement.
I'm gonna hang up, right?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna start in a second. Just a point of housekeeping. The green tiles in our ceilings are microphones. They are live and then they're sensitive. So we're on the record. If you can keep side conversations, either none of them or to short. People listening online, and then if we ever have to transcribe the record, if you hear conversations out in the gallery, so to speak, it will. So if you please keep conversations, even though minimum is probably too much, but keep conversations down so we can get through this, get through our hearing. People online can hear what's going on, and should we ever need to have a record of this for court purposes, that it can be transcribed properly. So I will call to order this Greenfield Plan and Zoning Commission meeting for November 12th, 2024. We'll start with our meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024 and October 29th, 2024. I have a motion to Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from both October 22nd and 29th.
For a second. Is Commissioner Braun is not on yet, or is she on?
She is.
Oh, she is on. Okay, no, that's fine. Commissioner Braun, can you hear us?
Yes,
I just want to make sure. Thank you. Is there a second on this item? Commissioner Corsillo seconds. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, that looks good to me. Thank you. No changes.
Commissioner Corsillo. Further, any comments, questions from the rest of the commission? Let's do a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. 6 hands, and Commissioner Braun, do you have a vote on the?
aye, yes, aye.
Thank you. Okay, that passes unanimously. Moving on to our next item, 254 Greenfield Street, referral pursuant to section 824 of the Connecticut General Statutes regarding acquisition of property. Therefore, we'll jump back in. Mr. White, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in 2021, the town acquired property at 244 Greenfield Street, and together with land dedicated from Millville Park, created parcels for the development of 2 affordable 2-family residences currently under construction by Habitat for Humanity. The town now has the opportunity to acquire the adjacent parcel at 254 Greenfield Street for the same purpose as outlined from materials you received from Mark Barnhart. Mr. Barnhart is here and present. Should you have any questions for him? I will step aside. Should you have any questions for Mr. Barnhart? That's all I have for them.
Let's get a motion, motion for a referral, either positive or negative, to at least get it on, and then we can have discussion and have questions from Mr. Barnhart if needed. Or you wanna have discussion, should we have questions first? What's easiest?
I think a motion on the table
I
would
think
be.
that would be better too. I have a motion, even if it's for discussion purposes. Commissioner Corsillo,
Move a positive referral.
thank you. Second then from Commissioner Harrison. Okay. Would you like questions from Mr. Barnhart, or do you wanna jump in with
I mean,
comments?
I don't have questions. I can comment.
No,
if
go right
others-
ahead.
If others have questions.
Sure.
we can-
Your floor.
I mean, it seems like it's a small parcel. It's less than a tenth of an acre. It's an opportunity to leverage a negligible piece of land to get up to 4 homes. So to me, it seems like a good opportunity.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yeah, I would echo what Commissioner Corsillo said. This is a great opportunity for us. It's great to see the town taking this initiative to build affordable housing, and I applaud it. I think it'd be a no-brainer not to pass it. It's good for the town.
thank you. Other comments, questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I believe there's a single family home there now. Do we know how much, this is kind of bordering on that open space area? that's up, goes up along Berkeley, I think, and we heard a lot of testimony in the past about flooding conditions. Is this going to add significantly to the impervious surface when we develop it? How much bigger is it gonna be than what's there now, I guess?
Questions regarding development of the property have not yet been answered. We haven't laid it out, but those will be addressed as part of an application at some point in the future.
Okay,
We
thank
don't
you.
anticipate any.
Okay,
Other comments, questions?
So who's gonna own, sorry,
Go ahead, Commissioner Ford.
who will own, town of Fairfield will own it?
Town will own it and will, the plan is to ground lease it to a developer, most likely Habitat.
Okay, then behind it, that's the park. Cause I'm just looking at it's an L, right? Is that the,
Correct. So we previously, when we acquired 244 Greenfield Street, we anticipated this might be in play at some point in the future. We had approached the Parks and Rec Commission to dedicate a portion of the park, which was unused and undeveloped. And they agreed to do so. So we drew a straight line right across so that we could potentially incorporate 254 in the future. So I'm happy to be at that point in time.
okay, thank you.
You just go to one more slide. I see it.
Any further?
question,
Go ahead.
is 244 on the corner of Greenfield and Berkeley, or where's 244 in relation to this?
No, 244 is further east, so it's down the street from Berkeley.
But on the same side from that big parking lot that's across from Aldi's?
Yes,
Um,
yes, it is.
And the Creative Minds Early Childhood Center, is that where 244 is, or is that, is
It's up-
between those two?
It's actually between, it's next to the Early Childhood Center. 244 is the next property up. the
So
street.
this is the next property, and it would not, whatever you're proposing would not go deep back into the parkland? It's
No.
only a tenth of an acre, right?
It would only go as far as the lot that you see for 244.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So that's where the straight line's gonna go across, it's the back of 244 towards Berkeley,
Correct.
kind of square it off, so to
Yes,
speak.
square it off, exactly.
Anything further, or can we put this to a vote? Commissioner Harrison?
Sorry, just for point of clarity, this will go to the board of selectmen now after.
It's been to the Board of Selectmen, so it goes to the RTM next. Yeah.
Positive referral from us goes to the RTM for majority vote. If it was a negative referral, then it would go to the RTM and they would need 2/3 vote. Require. The motion on the table is a positive referral. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. 6 hands.
Aye.
That's 7, so pass yes. Thank you, Mr. Bernard. 91 Algonquin Road / 150 Villa Avenue, referral pursuant to section 824 of the general statutes regarding proposed property line revision. Swint?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in 2022, the town acquired property 150 Villa Avenue for one of several areas designated for providing stormwater detention for the river watershed. The Villa Avenue parcel was divided from the parcel that presently exists at 91 Algonquin, which is privately owned. When that property line was established, apparently they inadvertently crossed over a portion of a retaining wall and access to an existing tennis court on 91 Villa. So the owner of 91 Villa is seeking to revise that property line by swapping out an equal parcel to eliminate that encroachment. The area is very small, it's about 200 square feet. So they're proposing an equal swap of land to eliminate that encroachment. And you do have a memo in the file that this modest adjustment would not impact the town's future plans for that Villa Avenue parcel. So since it's town-owned land, we're adjusting the property line. It has to go through all the same channels as the last application, basically. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Same thing with positive referral or a negative referral, but may I have a motion? Commissioner Levy?
I'd move to recommend the proposed exchange of property.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Ford seconds. Commissioner Levy?
It's a small piece of property, the lot line was apparently inadvertently drawn. Frankly, they might, if it wasn't a municipality, they'd probably have a good adverse possession claim. So I think it makes sense to recommend this positively.
Commissioner Ford?
It saves the hassle of a quiet title action. So I think it probably helps everybody involved. For the town and the property owner. So I support it.
Thank you. Further comments or questions from the commission? Pretty simple, straightforward, reasonable application. Positive referral. Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. New applications for a recommendation to public hearing. I'll call them all together, and should there need to be any questions on an item, we'll do so, but let's do this en masse. 31 Saskill Hill Road, re-subdivision application of Grant Panarese, excuse me, for 2 lots in an A zone. 460 Tunxus Hill Road, 80 Soundview Avenue, zoning compliance application of Jeffrey Bengelli for a 46 unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. 46 Webster Street, 43 Chambers Street, special permit application of Michael Becker pertaining to the construction of a contractor's storage and maintenance building, design industrial district. 220 Pansy Road subdivision application of Cardamus construction for 3 lots in an E zone. But don't require.
They do, or I think they speak for themselves. If you have any questions about any of these items, I'm happy to provide some more background, but other than that, they all require.
Let's start with just as I said, kind of an omnibus motion to pass them through. If there are any specific questions, we can do that during discussion. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve all 4 of these.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to read them out.
No, don't. But your motion is for a recommendation to public.
Correct,
to move
to move to a
hearing.
public hearing, yes, as required by law.
Is there a second? Commissioner Corsillo seconds. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, it's required by law to do that.
Commissioner Corsillo. Nothing further. Comments or questions from the commission? And hearings are required. Put this to a vote. Jumping the gun. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Passes, they all pass unanimously to public hearings. Sorry, old business. Zoning regulation amendment, application of Royal Homes LLC for a new section 5.1.1.2. Commissioner Ford, are you up to speed on this one?
This is Stillson, right?
This is not Stillson. This is regulation amendment.
No.
Okay, so Commissioner Siebert, you're sitting in for this one. Mr. Went.
Harrigan.
Excuse me.
For this application, the applicant seeks to amend section 5.1.1.2 for lots of at least 15,000 square feet in size in a residential B zone that could otherwise be divided into a 6,000 square foot lot for a single family dwelling and a 9,000 square foot lot for a 2-family dwelling. Under the proposal, the owner of an eligible lot could build 5 units of housing rather than the otherwise permitted 3 units. The parcel would remain a single parcel, and of the 2 additional dwelling units allowed, 1 must be an affordable unit restricted at 80% median income. So it would be a density bonus of 1 market rate unit in exchange for a deed restricted affordable unit. This would be as of right construction with administrative staff review, unless such development requires a coastal site plan application. The proposed provisions would not apply to lots partially or totally in the within a 100-year flood zone. Based on the proposed metrics, there are approximately 12 existing parcels that would be eligible, of course, with the possibility that currently non-eligible parcels could potentially be aggregated. The applicant would also agree to maintain a longer duration of the affordable unit for the lifetime of the structure. While a modest number of lots is impacted, the proposal represents a potential opportunity to create more missing middle housing types to diversify our housing stock.
Thank you. You have a motion on the item? Commissioner Levy,
Move to approve with a condition that any deed restriction be for the greater of either 40 years or the existence of the building.
is there a second? Commissioner Corsello.
I think it presents an opportunity to develop additional middle housing in the B zone without having to resort to 830G or anything of that nature. I think it would provide guidance for developers who might be considering developing this much needed housing.
Commissioner Corsello.
I agree with Commissioner Levy. I think it's a modest and incremental change, but one that's headed in the right direction.
Thank you. Commissioner Harrison.
No, thank you. And I agree with the commissioners on this, but my concern is that we're kind of relinquishing our oversight. Because this would essentially be as of right, it would be kind of rubber stamped in the office, and I am very, reticent to do that. Even if it's in exchange for more affordable housing. I already see people complaining about, the over densification of town in some parts. So what are our options? I don't know, maybe you can explain what we can. I just don't like to, I just like public hearings, and I think I just am a little reticent about this one. Although I understand the need for more middle housing, I like that, but there are flooding issues, there's a lot of overdevelopment complaints.
Well, there's not flooding issues for this particular proposed
Right.
regulation because this option wouldn't be available to properties located within the flood zone.
No, I mean, the Royal Home, is it Royal Homes, that was,
Yep.
that was the applicant, I mean, that's like within 40 feet, I think, of wetlands, it's still pretty close, or 40.
There's no inland wetlands. It would still need to meet all of the B zone. They don't get any additional lot coverage or floor area that would otherwise be permitted in the B zone. So you'd still have to meet the B zone underlying setbacks, lot coverage, and total floor area requirements.
Height limits.
In height as well. So that it doesn't give them a bigger box than would otherwise be permitted. It just allows one additional market rate unit in trade for a below market rate unit.
I think what we're also trying to do is we're really trying to incentivize middle housing. If they've got to go for a public hearing and go through that endeavor, they might as well approach it for a larger
No, I
development.
understand that.
So we're really trying to make this something that's a smaller size choice that allows them to, to develop something that is middle housing based instead of the largest option available to them. If they have to go through the similar process, I think it removes some of the incentive for them to not get as big a return on the parcel.
No, I hear that.
The other, under the change that was made in the legislation last year, these units would qualify for 8-30G credit points as well as of right middle housing. So that's another piece that allows them to, even the market rate units would count towards that credit.
Yeah, no, thank you. And do we know how many properties this might affect in town
Right now,
Yes,
12.
as
Yeah.
presently constituted, it's actually 11, but we rounded to 12. 2 of those are already essentially spoken for with, so it's not a lot.
Do we know what general areas of town those are in?
They're mixed.
By the beach area?
There are a lot, way more than that have more than 15,000 square feet, but they have to be subdividable, meaning they need 120 feet of street frontage so that you could fit a 6,000 square foot lot in a 9,000 square foot lot. So not all B zone lots at 15,000 square feet qualify. Then you take them out of the flood zone. So most of the B zone south of the old post road, for example, is in a flood zone. So those are not going to be eligible for this. The area up around High Street, Jennings Road, there's a couple, I mean, there's not a lot, there's maybe 10 really viable lots. Unless lots are aggregated, but if lots are aggregated for this, I think that's probably a better outcome than aggregating lots for, that we've seen in some other applications.
That's really helpful information. And just one other concern I want to share just with the commission, and again, I'm largely in favor of this, but I just I did have some concerns. I guess I'm also nervous about, getting rid of a lot of greenery and just paving a lot and just not having that greenery that I think we need. Is there any kind of condition of approval that we can put? Because if they're gonna be taking down trees, I think we should require some kind of replanting or we're not just losing trees in this, transaction.
Nothing immediately comes to mind, but I understand your concern, but I mean, you can require street trees, but that's gonna be whether it's a special permit or whether it's as of right, that's generally gonna happen.
Commissioner Randolph?
I share the concern about the elimination of green areas, but I believe that would be addressed under a different ordinance that the commission should consider separately. It is a legitimate concern, but the existing ordinances should be amended to address that, and it shouldn't necessarily be part of this, but it's an absolutely legitimate concern. The concerns about wetlands, massing and setbacks seem to be thoughtfully addressed in this amendment. And we have a housing problem in town. This proposal is sensible, it's incremental, and it's well thought out. It doesn't change the massing or the size of the buildings. It permits buildings of a similar size and scale to the neighborhood. It allows buildings to have similar setbacks, so it's not going to change the appearance. I'm strongly in support of this. I think it's a thoughtful, well-reasoned approach that the town needs to not only create housing, but also create affordable housing. So I appreciate the thought that's gone into this.
I have a question.
Hold on, Commissioner Seaver, did you have something?
No, nothing further. I
No, it's
agree.
fine.
I agree with Commissioner Randolph's comments. Thank you.
No worries. Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Did, I wasn't sure I heard what Commissioner Levy said. How long would this last? As long as the building was standing? Is that what he said? Something like that?
Or 40 years, whichever is greater.
So if they tear the building down, then it could revert back, but as long as the building's there, it would have to be deed restricted. Yeah, that's a good compromise. I like that. But I am concerned also with our losing any oversight, because this is a pretty significant increase in density. And if all the 11 properties that now could be done are in like McKinley area, or that's a lot. You're talking about 55 potential units being built in one small area. Again, I don't know where they are. Also, I agree that you could have flooding even if it's not in a flood zone. And this particular project, we saw some rendering. It's pretty big, and it looks like it paves over, eliminates 10 or 20 trees, restores 4 trees maybe. The problem is, if we lose our ability to review it, we can't impose anything on that, can we? Can we impose additional tree canopy for trees that are removed? Can we impose a design requirement if we don't get to review it? How does that get put into this text amendment? It's not in there now. So
No, it's not.
basically,
You're proposing something, then now is the time, so to speak.
Right. But I think we would have to review it.
Had suggested that it would be more appropriate in a different regulation. But if you have something in mind to consider, I mean.
Well, architecturally, I'm not an architect, but you wouldn't want something that sticks out like a sore thumb. It's already going to be much bigger than any surrounding. We don't have any 5-plexes now. We have a couple 9-plexes, but we have 4-plexes. They're pretty big. A 5-plex is bigger, and it's already going to be much bigger than anything near it. So if it also doesn't match the sort of design of the neighboring houses, that's a problem, and I think I have a question for Mr. Went. If it comes before us for compliance review, we don't necessarily have to have a public hearing, right? We can just determine on our own if we feel we should add some conditions, perhaps relating to parking or, design or landscaping, something like that. That's why I feel like our commission should have some oversight.
Well, you can't add a condition that's not proffered in the regulations. So in order to have a condition, it has to be referenced to standard in the regulations. But to answer the first part of your concern, I think, with respect to size, is one of the issues here is this would potentially be an opportunity for somebody to do a project that's more modest in scope, rather than to propose an even bigger, more out of scale project that we've seen in other applications.
I understand that.
And to size though too, the regulation amendment, the size of the building, even if they were to take advantage of this amendment, would be no bigger than what we currently allow anyways.
Correct.
So really, there's no massing that would otherwise not be already allowed.
Correct.
But we would have no, how do we import something in there about design being something that's compatible with the neighborhood? Or this could be an area that's not in a flood zone, but has a lot of flooding. We might want to be involved in that. They might check off all the boxes to be approved, but then suddenly there's a big problem and we have no review ability.
It's already outside of the flood zones that we've said, and we already currently don't have design elements for this area.
If I could also add as well, single family homes in the town of Fairfield, when they're newly constructed, they get reviewed by our engineering department for on-site detention. If this is adjacent to a wetlands, our inland wetlands commission and our inland wetlands, our conservation staff will review it. So those things will still be in effect. They'll still be required.
That's good. I still feel like we should have, but if we were to put a special, and I don't know if it would be a special permit, a special exception, then it would have to follow our criteria based on site-specific, project-specific review. And the only reason I'm saying that is a fiveplex is bigger than anything we allow right now to be, approved by the zoning enforcement officer, right? But
well, if I can answer, it is only with respect to the number of units within the box. You could build a single family house or a duplex as of right that maximizes the lot coverage and floor area. And you can do the same with a fiveplex. The only difference is there's smaller units within that same box than there would be that you could do today. But the regulation doesn't increase the overall size of the building that's potentially buildable on the lot. It just divides that building into a greater number of units.
although you'd have obviously separate garages and driveways and everything else, possibly more cars, but
Well,
if we
yes.
were.
Actually,
Yes, that is true, because we require a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces for every unit. So for every additional unit, whether it be a garage or a driveway, you have to have the ability to have 2 cars park off-street.
If we were to put a special permit or a special exception, could that be done without requiring a public hearing? In other words, something we just review, like when we do coastal site plan review, that does not get a public hearing, right?
It does not. You can't make it a special permit or special exception. That by statute requires a public hearing. You can make it a zoning
So
compliance application. But again, you want to add standards to a particular application that don't exist in the regulations.
I'm not sure we could probably amend this current regulation amendment to add that type of stuff without having to deny it and then have a new hearing on the whole matter. So. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I would just add, I think about a month ago or so, we had a hearing on the POCD. And we heard from a lot of people in this town who want a diversity of housing. We heard the term life cycle. They want to live here from when they raise a family to when they're retired. And we don't have that kind of housing. So I do think that does help there. And I think we should take the lead on this, and I'm happy to support this. And thank you for answering my questions before.
So I would agree with your statement that I think we heard pretty broad support for a variety of housing types that we're trying to, again, create options so someone can do some more modest proposal that's not a much bigger proposal. Yes, I agree.
Commissioner
with you.
Randolph.
One clarifying question. So the issue that is being raised is the look and appearance of it in the removal of trees. Might not those issues be addressed in a separate part of the ordinance? A separate part of our ordinances rather than this ordinance?
Yes.
So, yeah.
When we get to the zoning regulation revisions, please.
Yes, I agree with the statement you made earlier and as you speak, yes.
Yeah, so to address the issues that have been raised, which are legitimate concerns, those would be addressed in a separate text amendment, is that correct?
Yeah.
Should we
Yes.
decide to do
Should we
that?
wish to?
Yes.
Thanks.
I support the application. That the theme of gentle density has been discussed, I think positively among this commission and among the P O C D discussion. This is a limited incremental approach, similar to what we did with ADUs. Even ADUs, we're starting to expand it. I would think starting here, seeing how it works and potentially expanding it, or maybe not, whatever we decide, or removing it. But I think this is a good first step to see what happens, see how it works. We had at least a case study presented to us with this regulation amendment, which seemed like a good project to me. Any final questions or thoughts, or put this to a vote? Motion is to approve with the conditions stated. Anybody need any clarifications on the condition? Are we good with that? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next item. 222 Stillson Road, application of Paul and Mary Vinny for a certificate of zoning compliance pertaining to a 24-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the design resident district. Commissioner Ford, are you up to speed on this? Commissioner Ford coming back in. Or, Mr. Wentz.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the subject parcel is 0.719 acres in size, and that's on the northerly side of Stillson Road between the Lake Hill Shopping Center and the Oaks condominium. The proposal entails a 24-unit residential building comprised of 2 elevated stories above ground floor lobby and surface parking. The building is approximately 32 feet in height to the flat roof with a screening parapet roof, which is 6 additional feet in height above the roof that it surrounds. The 24 units are comprised of 2 studios, 16 one-bedroom units, and 6 two-bedroom units. 8 of the 24 units would be deed restricted as affordable. 4 units at the 60% income level, comprised of 1 studio, 2 one-bedroom units, and 1 two-bedroom unit. And 4 units at the 80% income level, comprised of 2 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. If approved, some minor adjustments to the final affordability plan should be required for a memo that we've already received. A total of 31 parking spaces are proposed, or 1.3 spaces per unit, with 23 surface spaces covered by the building and 8 spaces which are uncovered. This proposal has received WPCA approval for the sewer connection and approved inland wetland permit. Fire Marshal and Engineering Department have also confirmed the plans meet their respective specifications. Traffic report estimates trip generation of this proposal based on 24 single-family dwellings rather than an ITE trip generation rate for a low-rise or mid-rise apartment building, which generates a conservatively higher number of traffic trips. The number of trips used in the analysis is 20 peak hour AM trips and 26 peak hour PM trips. The analysis reports level of service A and B for the 2 site drives and negligible impact on the studied adjacent intersections. The report also indicates that adequate driveway sightlines are available. At the continued hearing, the applicant presented some partial screening walls in combination with additional landscaping to screen the below building parking. The roof line was modified slightly and the building material color scheme was changed to an array of gray tones from the previous cream colored proposal. This commission is familiar with the standards for review for denial of an affordable housing application, and those standards were discussed during the hearing. And they're well familiar to you. The burden shall be on the commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. And that decision is necessary to protect the public interest in health, safety, or other matters within this commission's jurisdiction. And those interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing. And that such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. As you heard from the applicant, court cases have indicated that the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. That record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. That is all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman, subject to any questions right now.
I heard, what were any potential conditions of approval?
Just there were a couple of tweaks in the affordability plan in terms of naming the administrator in clarifying the distribution of the units initially offered at the affordable rate.
Add that in there, should there be?
Yeah, I think we could enumerate those should we get to that point.
Let's see where we go. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Corsillo?
Move to approve with the condition that the applicant adhere to the changes proposed at the last hearing, including the enhanced screening and update landscape plan, and submit a revised affordable housing plan.
Is there a second? Seconds, Commissioner Corsillo.
So as far as this being an 830G application goes, Mr. Wendt repeated the requirements for denial. In my view, there's no evidence in the record as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted, which is not to dismiss the concerns of the neighbors who testified, but for this purpose, concerns are not quantifiable evidence. And I initially agreed with Commissioner Randolph that I would prefer to see one driveway rather than two to address some of the traffic concerns. But I thought the traffic consultant made a compelling case for maintaining two driveways, as limiting it to one driveway would have sent additional traffic onto the street. So that concern was addressed. So I think from an 830G standpoint, this is as straightforward an application as we've seen in some time. That said, I just want to be clear that I think this is a good project, regardless. If this had come in not as an 830G application, but as a straight zoning change, I would still support it. I think we need more projects like this. I think it's a modest project in a transitional zone that is abutting a surface parking lot in a commercial zone. I think when the Oaks were created, I thought it was, I think Fairfield is better for those 30 plus homes having been added where they were. And I think Fairfield's going to be better off for these 24 homes that will be added here. So for that reason, I support this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy.
Yes, I agree with the statements of Commissioner Corsillo. I'm very familiar with this area, having lived in proximity to it at one point. And regularly pass through it, whether on bike or the car, and I appreciate the concerns of the neighbors of having additional density right in proximity to the Trader Joe's parking lot. But based on the evidence that was submitted, there's no basis under 830G for a denial of this application. And frankly, I think it's more modest at 24 units than what many developers might have proposed. So under the circumstances, I think it's an appropriate development and that it should be approved.
Commissioner Randolph.
I agree with my fellow commissioner statements. And I do appreciate it heartens me to see so many people in the room. One of the people on the Board of Finance was jealous at how many people attended our meeting compared to theirs. But I do appreciate your active participation in this process, and I've carefully considered the concerns you've all thoughtfully raised. As you've learned as part of this process, and it's clearly explained on our town's website, under Connecticut General Statute 830G, known as the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Procedure, the town of Fairfield is legally required to provide a reasonable amount of affordable housing. This law was enacted in 1989. That's before I moved here, and I think predates the time most of us moved to Fairfield. This is not a new law. It mandates that at least 10% of the housing stock in all towns in Connecticut, not just Fairfield, be affordable. Currently, we only have about 3% that meets this criteria. That's 3%. That's not even a third of the way to where we need to be. Limiting the ability of school teachers, municipal workers, and local employees to live in our community. Next time you shop around the corner at Trader Joe's, go to a restaurant, or attend a parent-teacher conference, think about how far that person is commuted to their job because they cannot afford to live in our town. Legally deny an 830G project, the town must prove the proposed development poses substantial health or safety risks that outweigh the need for affordable housing. These concerns must be supported by concrete evidence on the public record, not just feelings, not just impressions, not just beliefs, but specific evidence. General objections based on density, design, height, or potential impacts, which were the substance of most of the comments, or in traffic or in schools, don't meet the state's legal threshold for rejection. Despite articulate and informed presentations by all of you, including input from an attorney who's amongst the residents of the Oaks, no substantial evidence was provided to justify a denial based on traffic safety or environmental hazards as required by the state statutes. For this project, educated and articulate neighbors stepped forward, but no significant environmental risks were identified. No traffic studies were presented identifying hazards, nor were there any issues related to inadequate access to essential public services like fire protection, which would be criteria for rejecting this. The proposed location is within walking distance of public transportation, schools, recreational areas, making it well suited for the affordable housing our community urgently needs, and I support this project.
Thank you. Excuse me. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah. I personally don't like this project. I find it too big. It's too close to the wetland for me. I believe it will adversely affect the traffic. I think it's out of scale and design with the other houses, even the ones at the Oaks. But again, this is an 830G. There's no evidence as talked about the other commissioners to support a denial. That's a unique structure under 830G, and that's not a law that we've created. That's a law from Hartford. So I think we have to approve it. I did want to go through, I do appreciate the public coming out here. I know that you never expected to have this burden. I get that and I feel for you. But we didn't see any testimony from experts supporting any public harm. As I said, I do feel this will affect the traffic, but we don't have any experts really saying that. And I find it unfortunate that 830G incentivizes these large developments because they had to make up the difference for the affordable units. I struggle with it. I'm glad to see that the developer did make minor adjustments to design, and I appreciate that. They didn't have to, so I think we should feel good about that. The wetland appeal of the conservation approval is in court now, but that really has nothing to do with our decision. I didn't see any expert testimony from the town engineer or any other expert that gives an opinion that there could be an unsafe or unhealthy, anything unhealthy about this project. I did see that the applicant did submit its own engineer report, I think during the conservation process. And the applicant's engineer did write a rebuttal, but I never saw another rebuttal from your expert on that. So it's hard for me to make conclusions because we just don't have any challenge to the applicant's response. Again, I'm gonna be supporting this, just it is 830G. Not much more to say on that.
Commissioner Ford.
I echo I'm not gonna repeat what Commissioner Harrison said, but she's right. Several years ago, we had an application, 8-30G application, where I think it was quoted in the paper saying, you know, the people who are objecting to the application are barking up the wrong tree. I'm gonna say it again, elections have consequences. This is Hartford driven, takes the discretion away from this panel in front of you. We all do hard work, you know, but we have to follow the law at the end of the day. In the current state, 8-30G, is that we have to find a substantial health or safety concern that clearly outweighs the need for the lower cost housing in this town. And there's really no evidence in the record that would, I think, that would lead any of us to conclude that this project is unsafe. Yes, is it a busy intersection? Most certainly is. But the increase in trips doesn't meet the level of it being unsafe. The state has come in and reviewed that the Black Rock Turnpike, all 4 lights stop. That also adds to the traffic. You know, the trips aren't necessarily going up, but the amount of time it takes to get through an intersection makes the traffic kind of billow north and south on Stillson Road. So, you know, that's a separate issue. But we have to look at the application. We have to look at that. This is, you know, our Hartford politicians directing local planning and zoning, telling them what to do. And that's what we have here. So we have to follow the law. The current state of the law is that we have to approve this application. That's why I'm supporting that, because I'm in love with this building, where I think it's in the right place. There's nothing we can do. And so therefore I'm supporting the granting of the application.
Commissioner Braun, do you have comment?
Sure, yeah. Okay, I too do not like this application at this scale, at this location. If you do a site-specific, project-specific review, which at least 8-30G does allow us, although it makes it extremely difficult by tying our hands, there are many deficiencies. I don't think it was good to do the traffic counts Labor Day week. I don't know why, I don't know what happened at wetlands or why a permit was given for half the building to be in the wetlands buffer / upland review area and not addressing the question the conservation director raised. I also read the report that's in here that Commissioner Harrison mentioned, where the engineer hired by the neighbors raised a lot of questions. I don't think they were all adequately answered in the response paper that we have in our record here. But the problem is that engineer didn't come here to rebut that response. So we don't have an answer to that. I don't think they're using, they've said they're not using low impact development stormwater detention, which would have helped since this is so close to the wetland. I think we heard on the record that Mr. Santiago got his questions answered. I don't remember what happened, but we don't have any negative from any town expert, and we don't have any negative from any opposition hired expert, and we have to rely on expertise. If the expertise is not in the record, this will go up on appeal. And unlike any other type of appeal of any other board or commission, I think in the whole state, town, state, whatever, the burden of proof is shifted from the person appealing to the commission. And because of that burden of proof shifting, towns lose 3/4 of these types of cases. If they deny an 8-30G, you tend to lose them because the burden is on this commission to have evidence in the record, specific evidence of specific harm that's substantial. We're not even allowed to follow our own zoning regulations. Everything is against us. Our hands are tied behind our back. We've lost a number of cases lately, but I'm not extrapolating that into this case. I'm just saying, without having experts to say this traffic report is inadequate, this stormwater system is inadequate, we don't have something to hang our hat on. I think there could be harm. We don't have a choice. If we don't have an expert saying something is wrong, we do not have adequate evidence in the record. So it's not a bad development. It's too big for this site. And I don't like it, but I pretty much have no choice. So I'm going to have to support this.
I too will be supporting this project. Again, this is under the scope of 8-30G, much different standard that our regulations permit or address, or most other things where we have a high burden to prove. And the main evidence that I saw was traffic concerns, and yes, it's very busy there. I know, I echo the characterization of the traffic in that area. I drive it all the time. The neighbors are right, you know, to characterize it as they did. The question is, what will this development, how will that impact the current status? And except for general concerns, which are fair concerns, it doesn't hit the legal standard that we have come to experience and know from, you know, being here for as long as at least the commissioners have, or just the 30+ years of case law from 30G cases that we've had to deal with. So, and our own town authorities have either approved in their official capacities or noted no issues in their official capacities. So, you know, in that respect, I do not see anything in the record that sufficient evidence to show a substantial harm, public safety, welfare, or any other legitimate interest that we can deal with. As noted, it's in a transitional area, which is a good spot for a project like this. And of course, in a this transition area, it's by the commercial corridor, it's gonna be traffic. So we kind of have a catch-22 with these type of densities you probably want in a transitional area, but at the same time, kind of lead with traffic concerns at the same time. In reading this for the first time, I was pleasantly surprised it was 24 units. I think it probably could have been more, in my experience with other 830G applications in other parts of town, I was expecting more. So in many respects, I did feel that, at least in the context of 830G, that this was a reasonable project. And overall, I thought the building was fine as it is. Neighbors certainly have the right to be frustrated about it. As we've learned with this, with the law, we're bound by the standards of that statute, and I just don't see the needed evidence, unfortunately.
Can I make one more comment, Chairman?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I feel like it's important to point out, I've been studying this law for 10 or 15 years, and it's confusing with the different ratios people talk about. This town is about to get into a moratorium, perhaps in months or weeks. And we might see more applications. Any application that comes in is before we get the moratorium. So that's valid. We have to deal with it. But the 10% ratio, we've been told by our economic development director that we will never see that. And I just want to point out that it's not really so much a target as an exemption amount. Any town or municipality that has 10% of their total housing stock classified using the 8-30G definition as affordable, they're exempt from this law. We will never get there, along with about 83% of all the other towns in the entire state. And another thing you should know is the same towns that the same 17% of the towns in our state, or cities mostly, poor towns and cities, that were exempt in 1989 are still exempt now. It hasn't moved the needle. Now we are adding affordable housing, and Fairfield's adding affordable housing. That does not really necessarily mean that that ratio will change. So we can't be too hung up on that ratio. It's not going to be reached. It's not really a target. It's just an amount to be exempt, and we'll probably never be exempt. So we're always going to be governed by 8-30G unless we keep getting moratorium after moratorium. So I just want to point that little bit of something out there for everybody to know about. It doesn't change my mind on this application though.
You said as much as needed, I think, unless there's any final comments. I'll put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Pass, not that time, Commissioner Seaver. That's okay. Passes unanimously. Let's take a quick 1 minute recess, stay on the record.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't forget, you guys work for us.
All good.
We the people, we don't want this shit in our towns anymore.
Right.
Too much. No more multifamily homes, no more apartment
Sir,
complexes.
sir, now's not the time.
Single resident that
No
actually wants
promoting,
this.
no
On the record,
promoting the
please,
post
sir.
road
Recording
downtown
stopped.
Fairfield either.
Excuse me, we're still moving forward, we're just taking a quick recess. Please.
You can do what you want anyway.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. To the right.
Of course they can.
We pay your salaries, don't forget.
It's getting paid.
Pretty much a
I'm gonna
pay it. I gotta raise.
Right, yeah.
This is volunteer. My sentence is up next year, feel free to run.
Completely covered and out of touch.
I don't know what the heck is this here.
We need to collaborate with the spot on.
give you the overview. The property is 441 Post Road. Emmeline, you could start with the slides. You know it well. It's the location of the Circle Hotel and the Circle Diner. We are very, very, very excited about this development. This team has worked on this carefully over the last almost year and a half, 2 years. And what we hope to bring forward on this site, and Emmeline, you can kind of scroll to the before and after photos, and you're going to hear from Sealan in a moment. The underpinnings of this application is a 110-room boutique hotel and 250 residential units, which will yield, by the way, 30 affordable units at a percentage of 12%. You'll hear from Wen in a moment, reviewing quickly some of the text amendments that we proposed, and one of those would be to increase the affordable housing component to 12%. It's an exciting proposal, obviously, and what we're going to present to you tonight is a presentation that talks about the benefits of this particular development to Fairfield. I think the aesthetic benefits are self-evident by the before and after photographs that Emmeline is showing. I think that one there is particularly compelling. We're going to talk to you about the consistency very quickly of this proposal with both your current and your proposed POCD. And we're going to talk about the proposed text amendments. There's material in the handouts about Workforce Partners and Mr. Gormley. Their long-term commitment to this community, things that they have done. And the same goes with regard to Spinnaker Real Estate Partners, one of the most premier developers in the Northeast. And if you scroll up a little bit, Emmeline, you'll just see some of the sample types of proposals and projects they brought to fruition in Fairfield County. And we're very proud of the collaboration working with these two outstanding entities. So at this particular time, I think I'm going to call on Sealan Pater of Greenfield Architecture, and he's going to give you a brief overview of what we've been working on so hard over the last year and a half.
Thanks, John. Emmeline, do you mind putting slide number 3? I'll just open your remarks on that slide. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sealan Patha. I'm a principal of Greenfield Architecture. It's nice to be before you again. It's pre-app, it's a high-level overview, so I'll keep it quick. So when we start to look at this in the program, as we usually do, we ask, how can we make a place here? There are 3 pieces of program: a residential component, a hotel component, there's a diner, and 4 really. There's a parking component, large parking component. So I'll get to the layout in a bit, but when we think about placemaking, we always ask about a concept that could serve that place and then placemaking. So we took our inspiration from 2 places. The existing hotel that serves a need for Fairfield, and then the New England architecture that exists in the greater area today. And by that I mean the homes more than the big box retail that's close by. And that's compelling architecture. We wanted this to fit in. And then we thought New England in. So sorry, I'm going to ask you to skip to slide number 12 now.
Number 12, I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's the only time I'll ask you to skip. Then we'll be good. So when we thought about a New England in as an architectural approach and a concept, we looked within our own portfolio for clues about what the architecture could be. The top 3 buildings are realized buildings. The ones below are projects that have been in design are in design. But for example, that's the Maples in New Canaan on the left, the Anchorage in the middle in Fairfield that you guys probably know, and the last building is the Oyster Wharf in Rowayton. But you see the idea of a New England vernacular that resonates throughout this new project. Next slide. And then this is our project inspiration. So we did the research, we looked at New England ends, we looked at the architecture that the architectural clues they provide. We paid attention to how the architecture controlled the mass, the height of the building, that's important. Particularly looked at how the upper floor was built into the roofline. That's going to control the scale in our project here. And we see the use of gambrels and dormers and porches to create a base, middle, and cap, which is an important architectural element for this design and fitting into the neighborhood. Next. Key metrics: 110 key hotel, 250 unit multifamily apartments. The existing diner remains. It's 4 stories, 50 foot tall, measured to the flat roof, and 530 parking spaces. This is a view looking northeast on Post Road. We'll go into detail in the actual application. But the important takeaways here is you see that the roof forms, the fourth floor being built into the roof, the gambrels versus the flat roof portions, breaks down the massing, controls the height, and the idea is to line the street, create a street line, which is an important urban planning concept with a walkway at the front. This slide goes to placemaking. Shows the diners in the background, the hotels on the right hand side, and the entrance to the amenities is on the left for the residential. So the idea here is that the central arrival court feels like a plaza. There's a symbiotic relationship between the hotel lobby and the residential lobby, and hopefully, as the image shows, is a place where people walk. They'll walk between the residential to the hotel. Maybe someone who's visiting family at the apartments has room at the hotel, grab lunch at the diner, maybe go to the bar at the hotel bar in the evening. So hopefully making a place. This is a view from across from Ash Creek. It differs from between 250 to 300 feet from the closest building facade to the other side of Ash Creek. There's some large foliage in place today, and we hope that all of that remains. Very quickly, the plan. This is the basement plan. So it's a sloping slide, and I'll make a larger point about that in a bit. But in the basement here, we can have the amenities with the pool and so on. And this is at what is essentially a lower level that you will not perceive from the street. So this is the first floor plan. The important takeaways here is that the parking that's required to serve this building and the hotel is quite a benefit, but it's completely hidden in a wrapped precast parking garage, and the apartment wraps it. The other idea of the relationship between the hotel and the green spaces, the hotel lobby and the residential lobby is shown. So you can see those two are close by, and there's a relationship between them. You can walk between them. The plaza, there's some drama. We always try to create some drama with the architecture. If you're walking into that residential lobby, you're walking up at a higher level. You'll overlook a 2-story amenity volume and over Ash Creek towards the water. But at that level, you don't get water views. But that should be dramatic. This is just a typical residential floor. Thank you. And this is a roof plan, just showing that potentially we're going to have a rooftop amenity to serve the residents, and that's pulled back from the Ash Creek side to the bar, that's sort of mid-block of the entire development. So this is a typical section. The important takeaways here, we said 4 stories, 50 feet. You can see that on the right-hand side. That's the Post Road side. You see that we're trying to have a base middle and cap with the porch and then the 4 stories and then roof line above. That roof line will screen condensers that we have for the served residential units. The front building, in turn, with that roof line screens the parking garage. You won't see any of it from the Post Road. And then you see how the site goes up and down towards Ash Creek. Now, you might not be able to see it in the screen. I don't know if you can zoom in, Emmeline, but there's a blue line. Okay, don't worry about it, it's fine. It's a blue line that shows sort of a house form. And what that shows is the existing hotel, actually, because it sits up so high on this, what is mostly a ledge hill, the top peak of that hotel line is close to where the roof line of this new building would be, because we are building into that ledge. And then finally, I would love to spend more time on the architecture, because that was our biggest effort here. But I'll say this in conclusion, that creating successful architecture based on this model, success lies in paying attention to the details. So we will. And if we get it right, hopefully it'll add value to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Celine. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission, staff, members of the public. I'm gonna conclude here for the project team. So these are just some of the ways in which we believe the project is good for Fairfield. Creates public access to view Ash Creek, where currently there is none, on the site. We're gonna be creating 30 new affordable housing units. We're enhancing pedestrian safety by eliminating a curb cut, an existing curb cut, and creating new sidewalks. We're gonna have a state-of-the-art stormwater management system that will significantly reduce pollutants to the surrounding tidal wetlands by at least 80%. We're going to establish a buffer zone between the project and the tidal wetlands that will infiltrate stormwater runoff, stabilize soil, provide habitat for wildlife, protect vegetation. And obviously, a project like this stands to grow the grand list in terms of property taxes and create jobs. And we have, in addition to what we think is a very pleasing architecture, we have a comprehensive landscape plan to go along with it, which is going to complement the style of the development and the architecture and improve the streetscape as it is. If you would go to the next slide. Emily, thank you. And obviously, any text change we demonstrate is going to be consistent with our PRCD. And here we're in a transition phase. Obviously, the existing 2016 POCD has a number of different provisions that support development like this. Revitalization and redevelopment along the Post Road to upgrade visual quality and promote reinvestment. And this is a terribly important area in Fairfield. Second, encouraging mixed-use commercial/residential development in existing commercially zoned sections. The desire to continue or enhance open space systems, especially along waterfronts, rivers, streams, shorelines, and including expanded public access. And here we would have a trail for public viewing of the wetlands and passive recreation with some benches. We also note that this project is consistent with the current draft POCD, the August 2024 draft, which is not adopted. But one of the overarching priorities in the current draft POCD is to achieve grand list growth by promoting and supporting walkable, mixed-use corridors to not only supply necessary new housing choices, but also to invigorate existing commercial properties. And we think we check a lot of those boxes. Second, strong demand for multifamily housing. Obviously, this commission well knows the demand for housing, including multifamily. Turning to the text change that we propose itself, which is the next slide. There's a red line, obviously, in your materials. We propose to add a new section, 10.4, section 3, which would have a new special permit use in section 10. This is a pre-app for not only the text change, but the proposed special permit application and coastal area management CAM application that we would bring before you. The highlights of the text change, I won't go into it in word for word detail, but it's limited. This ability to have a special permit for this type of use is limited to sites that have at least 6 acres. And here, if you look at the field card, we have more than 8 acres. But there's some portion of that is tidal, and we're saying at least 6 acres, at least 250 feet of frontage along the Post Road. We have much more than that, and abutting a tidal wetland. So that's the parameters that you have in the text to qualify for this. It would allow any combination of a hotel with no more than 115 sleeping rooms, multifamily housing with a maximum density of 38 units per acre, office, restaurant, and or retail. And that would obviously allow the existing Circle Diner to remain. We propose to increase the required percentage of affordable units from 10% up to 12%, making it more consistent with other TOD zones and higher than the current TODD requirement in this district. Height limitation of 4 stories or 50 feet with up to 5 feet of additional height allowed for desirable features architecturally, such as pitched roofs, screening and mechanicals. 50 feet is the maximum in the CD BD. So we wanted to keep to that. The height limitation would be reduced to 3 stories or 34 feet for any building that's located within 100 feet of a historic district. We're sensitive to the fact that we are close to the Old Post Road Historic District, which goes along the Old Post Road up to about a block or 2 away. So we have that carve out in there for limiting the height. Setbacks would be according to the as of right requirements for setbacks, except that we'd be bringing the buildings forward more to the street, which, as Celine described, is intended to create a streetscape in a central place. Lot coverage of 40%, must provide public access for viewing the tidal wetland, and residential parking of 1 space per bedroom or 1.5 spaces for household, otherwise per existing regulations. And we look forward most of all to your feedback and your comments.
Thank you, Attorney Brandon. There you go.
I have a question.
Well, we can start with you, just any questions that you have and any feedback.
I have a question about the location of, I mean, the design is very attractive. I think it's too big, but how does this fit in though with, is this gonna be like an anchor to redevelop that whole part? Cause I know we just did a study on the traffic circle itself, but I don't really see much changing in that general neighborhood. This might be kind of like an island of this type of development surrounded by like small repair shops and fast food restaurants. I mean, how does that fit in? What is your
We see it respectfully with quite a different spin. We see this as a gateway area to our town. And we spend a lot of time talking about gateway areas in the other side of town. But I think this is a unique opportunity for us to establish a real gateway presence at this site. You've seen what we have presented in terms of the architectural design and the uses. So we think it will be an outstanding addition to anchor this area, and it's good for the town in general. We certainly think
I appreciate that. That's great. A couple of questions about from the environmental perspective. I think 50 feet buffer from Ash Creek is too short. And also, I don't know if that part of Ash Creek accommodates public access for boating or kayaks or anything like that. But I would consider, if I was going to do a coastal site review, I would want more than sitting there and looking. I don't know if it would accommodate that based on what the topography is right there. But I think 50 feet is not going to be enough. And also, is the parking garage in the back facing Ash Creek? Because you have to put it somewhere. It looks like that's where it's going to be, and it's pretty high also.
Answer.
Sure.
Yeah, so the parking garage is, it's in the middle of the development, surrounded by apartments, so you won't see it.
So what's facing Ash Creek? There's a tall white box from one of the plans I saw.
Do we have time to go back to the slides or no?
Go ahead, yeah, no, to answer the
Yeah,
question, we should.
Yeah, so it's the section, please, Emmeline, if you can. So what's facing Ash Creek is just apartments. You'll actually see windows of floors of apartments. You won't see the concrete structure that is the apartment.
What's this white building?
That's the diner.
Diner, yeah, okay.
Or is that what?
I think that's what she said, I was asking.
To answer your question, Commissioner Braun, the building, the new building facing the Ash Creek will be apartments. It will not be the garage.
Okay.
What appears as white in plan is the diner. That was just pointed out to me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Let's go down the line. We'll start Commissioner Ford, get our way over.
The current parking, the garage within the apartments, that for both the hotel and the people who are renting?
Yes, and there is surface parking to serve the diner.
Okay.
Some parking, visitors parking stuff around the side, so there's parking inside, but the majority in the parking garage.
And the other question I have is that is there gonna be 2 lobbies, a lobby for the rentals and then a lobby for the hotel?
Yes, two separate entities, yeah.
would it be, I assume there'd be a restaurant and a hotel?
We specifically showing a larger footprint in the hotel at the base with no hotel rooms in anticipation of something.
All right, and then one more question. Any other retail planned?
Not currently.
Are you able to give feedback or do you want people to ask questions first?
We love both.
Well, I know you, but I'm asking you.
No, that's I'm fine.
But any, like besides just the questions, any feedback for them about the project in general?
Yeah, no, I think it's, well, yeah, number one, we need
Non-binding, by the way, yeah.
we need hotel rooms, so thank you. The design, I think the design pictures are always, these are all, color gloss, they're very nice. But when we get into the nitty gritty, there might be some changes in terms of, height and all that stuff, but you will get to that. So no, I like the plan, I like the mixed use, I like the multifamily, I think it's a good use for the space. And I think it's gonna be a good addition to Fairfield, because I know there's been other plans kicked around about having hotels built in town that just have never developed, so it's one that get off the ground and complete it, because I know the schools alone would eat it up. So, thank you.
Commissioner Levy?
I'm very impressed with the proposal. Both the architectural design is first rate. I'm familiar with the Greenfield firm and they've always done top-notch work. So I'm glad to see them involved in Fairfield. And I also like the mixed use of both the residential and the hotel, both are needed. Just a few comments. Right now, we're still trying to evaluate what the percentage of affordable would be, whether it be 10, stay at 10, go to 12, perhaps even 15 or 20. Assuming that's still undecided when this comes before us, you consider making half of the units 60% and half 80% as far as the affordable. That might be more in accordance, if it stays at 12%, that might be something that we might want to consider. The other, it's not really a concern, but it might be something you might want to address. It appears, if I'm correct, that you're eliminating one of the exits or curb cuts that goes to the old post road. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, which would mean basically you have just that one entry. And I'm not sure, is that on the old post road or actually on the post road there?
There's one, on the post road.
Yeah, so, that's a tough intersection there. You've got cars coming out of the old post road, you've got cars going straight on the post road, you've got cars going around the circle to get the 95. I don't know if it's something you can do or involve the DOT, but if there's some way that entryway might be moved perhaps further east, that might actually help. I don't know.
I'll make just one point about that specific entry. It's only ingress. It's not egress. You can't get out of that way because if you're coming up the Old Post Road,
Yeah.
you can only go in. You can't turn that way.
Well, where will be the egress?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So by the courtyard there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a road. The design just.
Oh, I didn't realize that was vehicular. I thought that was pedestrian.
We're trying to make it pretty, but the idea is that I hate to say it, but everyone says it all the time. A one-off where you have a shared use between pedestrian and cars, but a pedestrian friendly road.
Your question is very pertinent though, because what we have been doing as part of this planning process, Mr. Barnhart, who I think had to leave, has been a great help, is we have been coordinating with the DOT and our site plan, because as you know, the DOT is presently on the verge of a rather substantial improvement to the circle area. And so we wanted to make sure that what we bring to you, and obviously we're gonna do a full traffic presentation, et cetera, but that we were aware of and had coordinated it with. And one of the things that will lead to is basically what you're talking about, which is moving that entryway somewhat easterly, so it will line up appropriately with the DOT plan. So we're kind of on top of that, but it's still in process with the DOT.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, thank you. And similarly to Commissioner Levy, I was really concerned about the egress and just it's a very awkward area. I've been to the diner many times and it's never an easy way to get out. But curious, how many parking spaces are there currently and what would be the increase?
We know the number that's gonna happen.
I did see the number that you are gonna have, I didn't see what we have.
Approximately 170.
Currently we have 175, and we were thinking,
No.
Total of 533.
oh, 500 and,
535,
533.
533.
okay, thank you. And what's the percentage of impervious pavement right now? What would be the increase on that?
So I don't. It's something we can get for you from.
We can get that to staff for you, so you'll have.
I'm not saying it's gonna depend, it's not gonna change my
No, I
feeling
get
on
it,
it,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
just,
No, we absolutely, we have to keep it that number.
no, thank you for your presentation. Look at the devil is always in the details, so look forward to seeing more, but it sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
I would echo Commissioner Levy's points about affordable housing, 12%. I mean, I'm not sure if that's where we're gonna end up. I don't know if it's gonna be higher than that, 15, even 20 or something like that. I would be mindful of planning for something higher than 12% and if possible, 60% AMI. As Commissioner Levy rightly pointed out, would be a great target as well in your planning sessions. Obviously, no traffic would be a concern. I'm not, no point really going into that here. It should be on topic. If you assume that, if you include hotel units, I'm just curious if you know approximately what unit to acre, what that percentage or that ratio would be.
Not including the hotel units, but we're looking for residential density at 38 or 39 per acre. And keeping in mind that we're using a very conservative estimate of the acreage on the site, closer to 6 because of the tidal wetlands, the field card shows over 8 acres. And we think that's, a lower density, a lower residential density than certainly than the, 50 units per acre that are allowed in TOD zones in town.
But you're not including the hotel units.
No, we have not.
But you're including the entire acreage in that.
Yes.
Right. I wouldn't mind knowing that just to have an idea about what, and I know hotel units are not residential units, but it'd be nice to have a sense of room, so to speak, what that is on the total acreage. We'll be mindful, I think, of what the commercial impact of that is. Keeping the hotel, as Commissioner Ford, would be great as well. That's kind of hits my, how long, what's the number of floors on the garage? Was it 2 or 3?
To go in the structured garage?
Yes.
5. Okay. But because it's just a lower floor of floors, you hide it with a 4-story barn.
Which is great in its own right. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it. I just wasn't expecting that this type of project could fit there. I also didn't know the site and the meets and bounds and all that, what actually could fit there. The fact you have that the garage hidden by the units, we've seen that before, and I wasn't sure if we'd ever see it in Fairfield. But it's a clever design, and for obvious reasons, it's less impervious surfaces, but and keeps the parking on site. I mean, overall, from a 40,000-foot viewpoint, I mean, I'm intrigued and excited by the prospect of it. Obviously, it depends on a bunch of things, traffic, regulation amendments, things like that. As Commissioner Harrison said, devil's in the details, so to speak, but I take this as a pleasant surprise, and would look on it favorably at this point. Go ahead if you have something more.
Yeah, I apologize. Sorry. Thank you for letting me go. Was there any outreach with the neighbors? You had mentioned Attorney Brahman about the historical design, the historical area being kind of adjacent. I know it's not there, but was there any outreach done? I know you guys are all seasoned.
We're intending, we felt we would come to you first to get your input, which we're appreciating tonight. Our next step, we have been discussing it in some detail, will be reaching out to various constituencies in the neighborhoods and in the town at large before we come back to you with a formal application.
I know it's not just the Old Post Road Association, but it's Riverside Drive, Turney Road area. I was just curious.
Yeah, we're gonna, we'll start certainly among other resources with the RTM from the district and also neighborhood associations and Chamber of Commerce, and we're gonna make an effort to introduce the project to the community and the neighborhood before we come back to you.
Thank you.
Marcelo?
Yeah, Commissioner Levy already covered my question on affordability. Attorney Fallon, you answered one of my questions about the peanut. My other was also about that. So my understanding is that there's going to be some sort of pedestrian improvement as part of that, not just the traffic part. So I'd be curious as you get further along how your project is gonna integrate into some
I
sort
mean,
of.
the turning circle
Yeah.
improvements, yeah, we've looked at that, we have that. So we are, our challenges are coordinating with that plan.
Okay, yeah, I'd definitely like to see that when you come back.
As I said, Mr. Barnard's been a good conduit for us with DOT and his office, so we're actively involved in that.
I mean, I think in terms of feedback, the design is beautiful, so I appreciate the level of thought and attention that went into that. And I think having sort of signature gateway type project there is going to really help attract a better quality of other uses to adjacent properties, so I'm excited about it.
Commissioner Randolph? I think I wasn't familiar with your firm, but this is very thoughtful and contextual work. It shows a great deal of consideration of integrating different uses and is an excellent start. And I think it would be, while the Circle Hotel is actually not a bad building, this would be a significant improvement. The issues that always come up, I'm just going to raise them preemptively, are traffic. And so I would encourage you to make sure your traffic engineer is prepared to address all the public's questions. It's one of the most sensitive issues because the existing traffic conditions in town are problematic. I don't believe that your project will, based upon traffic counts, will contribute significantly, but that's something that you all will really need to focus on and lean into. I appreciate your outline of the text amendment, but if you could walk me through that, because it's a little bit inconsistent with the actual text that you provided. I know it's a summary, but I guess my first question is, what's your concept? You're going to add a special permit use, and why did you take that approach rather than amending the existing text in the
The idea, Commissioner Randolph, was because there's already several special permit uses, and special permits obviously give your commission more control and more ability to impose conditions and to offer feedback and requirements. So we figured that we would add a new special permit for a very unique type of development. We have pre-existing lawful non-conforming hotel and restaurant already. And neither of those would be permitted uses today, just based on the way that the design residence district developed historically. So it's sort of a strange animal that we decided to give its own unique section in the regs.
It is there an opportunity, since part of the thinking of our commission is to encourage mixed use, is there an opportunity, as I read your summary, and I didn't read your actual text amendment as carefully as I probably should have, but is there an opportunity to make this special permit one that is more generalized and could be used elsewhere in town, rather than being a one-off zoning change specific to the site?
Yeah, I'll let Attorney Fallon address that as well, but my initial thought is that you have a very unique site here. The proposal to amend the regulations is specific to the design residence district. I'm sure you could have an assemblage of different properties by a single developer that meets certain criteria, but off the top of my head, I don't know other properties.
I mean, obviously, whenever you do a text amendment, you're faced with the choice of, should I keep it narrow or should I make it broader? And I think our approach here has been to come up with a text amendment that we think deals with the development that we envision here. The commission always has the opportunity, however, as part of the process, if they want to broaden the scope. And there, I think you might get input from Emmeline and Jim in terms of some of the issues relating to other sites that could be compatible for this type of amendment and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I would, it's a great start for a project in a very suitable, well-suited area. I would request that the text amendments perhaps be more generalized to help guide the town for future mixed use, if that's a possibility. I understand we're focused on your project and it's an improvement to town. But if we could perhaps look at the text amendment and not make it so specific to the site and come up with something that's more generalizable so we can encourage this type of development in town, that might allow us to basically broaden the opportunities for mixed use development. And then I've got a couple of specific, more tactical questions. So back to your ratio, you said it's about 38 per acre. And does that include, could do the math, but that's just for the 250?
That's just for the 250.
So it's 250 plus
Plus the
110.
110.
And in your text amendment, and again, I should know this, but are you just proposing for a reduction in the unit size within the special permit only, or would that be across town?
Reduction in the unit size.
Add in here, reduce the unit size from 750. Oh, did I not see that in here someplace? Mistake.
If you point me to the section, I can.
Maybe I made a mistake.
I'm sorry.
Not saying which.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was in the text where you were asking for to remove the minimum unit size. Is it?
Yeah, well, just as a technical matter, minimum unit sizes are prohibited now by state statute, so we struck that.
Okay, great.
That's right. That's why we did that. Because we can't, the state does not allow local zoning regulations that prescribe a minimum unute size.
Could you just
So we just figured we'd take it out.
Can you just educate me on that real quickly?
Yeah, sure. So I think it was may have been the 2021 amendments to the state statutes governing local zoning that did away with the ability of a zoning commission to legislate the minimum size of unit to allow units to be as small as permitted by the state building code. And so there still is a minimum size that a unit has to be under the building code, and that's regulated by the building department. But zoning can't impose a higher minimum unit size now in any Connecticut municipality for zoning purposes rather than simply for building and safety and health purposes.
And one last tactical question. How many units are in the existing hotel?
80.
80, okay. Thanks.
All set. You're set. Thoughts and final? Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, so this is not in the historical district, is it?
It is not, although we are cognizant of the proximate historical district, and if you look at the text amendment, as Seelan pointed out, we did modify the height requirement sensitivity to the historical district.
One last question.
Commissioner Randolph?
Had you considered, this is a very distinctive and I think New England style building. The diner is not. Obviously, had you considered including that a renovation of the diner in the project?
We have not at this point. We have a long-term lease with the diner operator. So, as we share our vision with them, if they have interest in appropriately perhaps working with their facade, we'd be happy to work with them on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I have 2 minutes?
Sure. Attorney Collin, can I at least call it and then give you 2 minutes? All three?
Yes, they're all gonna be combined into one hearing, yes.
All right, so that ends that pre-application review. We'll go to our public hearing. 2179, 2199 Post Road, 29 Fairfield Place, application of Sunshine Acquisitions Group LLC to establish a center design business district on land presently zoned design commercial district. Regulation amendment, application of Sunshine Group Acquisition LLC to amend sections 13.3.16, 12.7, 25.7.9, 28, and 31.2.16 of the zoning regulations. 2199 Post Road, 29 Fairfield Place. Special permits and coastal site plan application of Sunshine Acquisition Group LLC into a proposed mixed-use commercial residential building. Attorney Fallon just asked for a few minutes, so we will give him that. Cause he's representing the applicant, right?
He's in charge.
He's in charge. that's
Just
right.
tagging along.
No. We'll stay on the record. If anyone needs to use the restroom quickly, go ahead.
Gentlemen, am I not involved?
I think you're the leader.
Is there something I missed? All right.
Good.
I think we're good.
Balance.
Marty?
Easy.
Keeps me out of trouble, maybe. So, good evening. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here representing Sunshine Acquisition Group LLC. The principals of Sunshine, which I'll elaborate on in a few minutes, are to my left, Mr. Alec Lakic, who's a Fairfield resident, and Mr. Mark Andre, also a Fairfield resident and an architect who happens to be the architect for this proposal. So what we're before you tonight is a development, mixed-use development, that we're gonna outline for you as part of our presentation. That will consist of 40 residential units, a mix of 4 studio units, and one bedroom, and 34 studio units and 36 one-bedroom units. The first floor, as you'll see, as Mark is gonna walk you through it, will consist of space to accommodate retail uses and a restaurant. We're also, having worked on this development, and we were here with a pre-app with you, I think back in January, was it?
January 9th.
Yep, and one of the things we got good feedback from you on then was the public plaza area, which we envisioned to be a community resource utilized for community gatherings where people could socialize and congregate and the like. We're proposing 71 parking spaces as provided. We did have, in addition to the pre-app with you, a code enforcement meeting that was held on April 30th. And we've complied with and addressed all of the comments that were made at the code meeting. There are 4 applications before you tonight. One is an application for a map amendment to change the zone of these properties to the design commercial, the center design commercial district. That is something that is previsioned and recommended in your pending draft plan of conservation and development. We also have text amendments that I'll review with you during the course of the proceedings. And we have a special permit and a CAM site plan application. As we shared with you at the time of the pre-application, our vision here is the development that includes provision for upscale interior and exterior amenities, which you're going to see in a minute, and architecture that is going to be of high quality and very unique and attractive. I used in a few moments ago in the other presentation, the word gateway. This is also a gateway area to our community on the Post Road. And we believe that this is going to be an anchor for the type of development that should be being encouraged in this gateway area in the Center Design District. We also, as I said, believe that the outdoor space and public plaza in conjunction with a restaurant will provide an opportunity for a nice, dynamic and multifunctional area that will animate activities in this proposed mixed-use community, as well as the surrounding neighborhood. Our goal, then as now, when we first came to you, is to work collaboratively with you to take our lead from your draft plan of conservation and development with regard to our proposal and the amendments to the Center Design Business District regulations, so that we can build what you're about to see, which I'm extremely personally excited about, because I think it's one of the most outstanding and invigorating mixed-use developments that we've seen in the town in a long time. I mentioned Sunshine Acquisitions, and I mentioned Alex and Mark. They have worked very hard on this over the last 2 years. They bring to this endeavor a real commitment to Fairfield, a real commitment to affordable housing, which I will address in the course of my remarks, and a real unique creative ability to ensure the execution of this kind of vibrant and high quality mixed-use proposal in town. Mark, at this point in time, I think the old one picture is worth 1,000 words. Mark's going to walk you through a presentation that I think will give a very good idea of why we're excited about this development and why we think it will be such an anchor in this gateway in Fairfield. So I'll let you cue it up with Emmeline.
So before we start, obviously, John, thank you for the kind words. You already introduced our leadership at Sunshine Acquisition Group. Alex, I don't know if you want to add anything before So tonight, good evening, Chairman Noonan and commissioners and members of the public. For the record, my name is Mark Andre. I'll be speaking to you tonight from my perspective as an architect. So I had prepared an outline and I intended to give you guys a brief overview of our application, but I think it's better suited to show you guys a video, a simulation of the project that we prepared out of our office. Mark Giandro Architects is a local architectural firm. We base in Fairfield, Connecticut. I have my staff here who were very instrumental in creating this presentation. I have Ben Park joined our office in May. He has a master's degree from Yale University School of Architecture. I have Jessica McHugh. She's a licensed architect in the state of Connecticut. She's been with our office for about 12 years. And I'm the principal of Mark Giandro Architects, and I've been Fairfield resident for over 25 years. Ms. Harrigan, please. And what I'm gonna try to do, there's a little bit of sound. Can you play that? Okay, that's fine. So what I'm gonna try to do is walk you guys through this video. It's about 10 minutes. So this one is bird's eye view. And then at some point, it's gonna bring you down to the ground. And you imagine yourself in a car driving from Westport towards our development.
Andre, this is in the record? This has been submitted?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So at first, we gave you general locations of where the project is located. I'm sure all of you guys are very familiar with the area. That's the site. The general existing zoning with the site within the parent zoning. These are general features near our site. Showing public transportations. So right now, you either a passenger or you driving your car towards our development. You just passed Grill Britannia on the right, and facing you, there's the Wedding Cake building to the left, the Excite battery site to the left, and our building is on the right. What we did with this video presentation, we integrated the landscape design and the architectural plan all together. So those and some of the traffic features. So if you see parking restriction, trees, these are part of either our traffic studies and our landscape plan. If you see hedges between the plaza and the walkways and our covered porches, that's all part of our landscape. So this video showing an enhanced landscape, which is beyond what we already submitted, but it's all integrated in this video. So at some point, you're going to make a right turn on Lindbergh. That's the auto repair shop at the corner of Lindbergh and the Post Road. This is a plaza at corner of Lindbergh and Post Road. And this will be our main entrance to the right. When you pull in, our exit from our underground parking garage will be on the left. And at some point, you'll be parking your car and you will take a stroll around our development. That's the entrance to the parking garage on the left. This is within our courtyard. A side entrance to our commercial where that orange door that's on the right. Now you'll be entering our surface first floor parking garage. If you make a left, there's a ramp that will take you down to the underground parking garage. Now you park, now you're gonna take a walk throughout the development. You'll be making a left turn. This is Fairfield Place.
Right turn. So you're required to turn right?
Excuse me.
It's a left turn.
Oh,
You're making a left turn on Fairfield Place. And you'll be entering our little mini park. Let's create an area where our tenant, our residential tenant, can interact with the community. This will be restricted, but this is a semi-public space. And all the vegetation, the trees that you see, that's part of our landscape design. The ground has a combination of pea gravel. In some areas we'll be putting the binders so it can be a solid surface. So if someone is on a wheelchair, they can be easily go through this area. Now you're winding down past the parking garage, the dumpster. One thing about this presentation, the parking areas are pretty much screened. This design is not about showcasing parking lots. The exit ramp from the parking garage to the left, and at this point shortly, you'll be exiting our mini park on Lindbergh Street, then you'll be making a left turn and going back into our courtyard again, go under the building, then you'll be making a right turn on Fairfield Place towards the Post Road. As you exit in the parking garage, the loading space to the right, so you exit, you can either make a left turn or a right turn. We're making a right turn, we're strolling along Fairfield Place towards the Post Road. And all these parking signs, these are parking restriction that is part of our traffic studies. This is the lower plaza at the corner of Fairfield Place and the Post Road. And if approved, we will have a restaurant at the lower plaza. Now you walk into a new sidewalk currently in really bad shape. And all these trees are new trees that will be planted if approved. This will be our main entrance, that orange frame. That will be the entrance for all the residents. That will be a see-through lobby that connects the Post Road Plaza to the back courtyard. And this is the upper plaza at Fairfield, Lindbergh, and the Post Road. You will also notice in some areas we have bike parking. That's all integrated in our videos. Now you'll be making another left turn towards Fairfield Place, and this will take you to our front door. And at some point, you would have to imagine yourself like a bird. You'll be flying up, scaling up the facade of our building. And what that will do is to show you how we play with the massing and the surfaces of the building and how we create push and pull, how we play with the massing. In our different areas, we have balconies where our tenant can, open the door, chill a little bit. They can bring their own little flower pots. In some areas where we're gonna have amenities for our tenants, like some outdoor balconies and fitness areas and clubhouses. And then at some point, you'll be at the rooftop. That's an activated rooftop where we're gonna have a extensive solar installation and then landscape areas for our tenants. And all these paths and walkway and hard surface and soft surface, that's all integrated as part of our landscape plan. Shortly, you'll be landed on top of the roof and you take a quick walk. So on top of the roof, we have some areas where people can congregate, they can barbecue, chill, and enjoy the view after a long day from work. And with this, that would conclude our video simulation.
Thank you, Mark. So, as I said, one picture I think is worth 1,000 words, and just the attention and detail that was taken to present this video, I think tells you something about Sunshine Acquisitions and what they will bring to executing this project. When we reviewed the pre-application, we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was generally consistent with the Center Design Business District, which we seek a zone change to, and also with input and guidance we received from the draft plan of conservation and development. And that's my wife, tell her I'm not here. We are also excited to be present to present you with those proposed amendments, which I'll do momentarily, that will allow for the creation of what we think is a very vibrant mixed-use community on an extremely gateway properties in the downtown area. And we're excited because we think this proposal, and you're gonna see a little more detail on in a minute, facilitated by the proposed amendments, which are consistent with the draft plan of conservation and development, will also move past the pandemic that we suffered from and help us be a beacon for Fairfield's continued growth and vitalization, especially in this very important area of town. I want to say a few words about affordability and the affordable units. I've been very impressed by Alec and Mark's commitment since the beginning of this process to really doing something meaningful in terms of encouraging affordable development within the context of mixed-use development in the Center Design Business District. With regard to that, it is our hope that with the extension of the Center Design Business District, you will include a provision, as is contained in our amendments, for a higher percentage of affordable units within a development than is presently under consideration. I appreciate the 12% number. I know that's important, but these clients feel that it is worthwhile to bring to your attention and for your consideration, and are doing so in this application, an amendment that will provide that a minimum of 20% of the units will be deemed restricted as affordable pursuant to the provisions of Connecticut General Statute in any such mixed-use development located within the Center Design Business District. That is ultimately for your consideration, but it is a commitment that my clients have made with regard to this application. And we hope you will carefully consider that, and it is embodied in our amendment presentation. And I will go through the amendments briefly in a few minutes. At this time, I want to make our more traditional presentation. Mark is going to walk you through the site plan based upon the plans that have been submitted to you already. He's going to give you a brief overview in a more technical nature of the architectural plans and the landscaping plan. Online tonight is Mr. Doug Reich of Fuller Engineering. He did all the site engineering here. This has been reviewed by the town engineering department and approved. If you should have any technical questions with regard to the site engineering, Doug is here to answer those questions. We also submitted, and it's part of your record, a CAM report by Matt Pop. And certainly if you have questions relating to Matt's report, I'll be happy to answer that. And then before I address lastly the amendments, we're gonna have Dave Sullivan of SLR, who's our traffic engineer. We have submitted a traffic report for your consideration and review, and Dave will briefly summarize that. So at this point, I'd like to bring Mark back in a more traditional setting as the architect to walk you through the site plan, the architectural plans, and the landscaping plan, and I'll give you a little elbow room to do that.
Thank you. So this is the existing condition survey showing our empty lot. This is 2179 Post Road. This is 2199 Post Road, where we have the smoke shop. That's a commercial use. There's a 2-family here, and then this is 29 Fairfield Place, and this is a single-family residence. And all 3 properties are located in the design commercial district. Next, please.
It's just slow, Mark.
Either reduce it, or if you can expand the screen a little bit. There we go. So where I'm pointing out, this is a post road, this is Fairfield Place, and that's Lindbergh. So our building, the ground floor, we have new sidewalk, we have a public plaza, a covered walkway connecting the upper plaza and the lower plaza. And at the corner of Fairfield Place and the post road, we're proposing a restaurant that will anchor this area. And then the center core, that will be our main lobby entrance connecting the sidewalk, post road, elevator area to our courtyard. And these, the blue areas, these are retail spaces. And then the yellowish, that's our management space connecting to the lobby. As you wrap around Lindbergh, you enter this way. This is one way. There will be some surface parkings in this area. You can either through this door that would take you to the hallway, to the lobby area, or you can take the elevator or the staircase to the upper floors. This is another entrance. So we have multiple access points. As you go through this, you can go in the parking garage, ramp down to a basement where we have 53 parking spaces. Above the ramp, we have staircases here, and then above the ramp, this will be our dumpster. All of these areas screen. And between our building and the neighborhood properties, we created this pocket park that provide buffers and outdoor areas for our tenants. And we showed you guys all of that early on with our video simulation that show a lot of enhanced landscape design there. Next slide, please. Next one. So this diagram essentially showing you a diagrammatic cross-section of the building. And the intent here is to show how we play with the massing and how we set back different part of the building. For example, along the post road, we have this covered area that has some outdoor balcony. And from here, these 2-story apartment about 10 feet from the property line, And then this upper floor is set back again, another 4 to 5 feet. And then along, I believe, Miss Porter's property, by the way, this Miss Porter's property is a new dual zone, meaning commercial and residential zone. So between at our property line, we have the parking garage. This is where our pocket park is. This is about 20 feet. Then we set back the building above the parking garage. So this dimension here, that's about 25 feet. So we set back those 2 floors of apartment away from our property line, about 25 feet. And then this upper floor, that's 29 feet. And then all these areas, these little steps, we have outdoor spaces for our tenant at this floor, and then the last floor above, these will be like outdoor balconies. Next one, please.
The lower half for the next.
The next one. So this is just an enlarged section for what I just described, showing you the different setbacks. This one along the post road, and this one is along Miss Porter's house, which is at 37 Fairfield Place, 19.9, 25.3, and 29.3. And along the post road, we have 10 foot and then 14 to 15 feet of setbacks. Next slide. And in this slide, what this one is showing is essentially our parking garage. If you come down from the upper parking garage, you can loop back and exit out, or you can, this creates a continuous loop where you can park. And we have about 53 spaces. We have elevators here, staircases, another set of staircases here. These connecting the parking garage all the way up to the roof areas. Next slide.
Sorry. Sorry, Mark, go back up one.
Well, I just walked you through this, but this is basically the same as the architectural site plan. Basically, this is showing the commercial spaces and then our management space. And then the areas in white are either parking or driveways. Next one. So this would be our first apartment floor that's directly above the parking garage. These are a mixture of studios and 1 bedroom. And these are the circulation core. This first level here in this concept, this has public access to every single tenant. That's an outdoor space that wraps around here. And then these units are private outdoor balconies and gardens and porches. And at each floor, we have amenities for our tenant. For example, this area here, we have some co-working space. This one is a little bit of fitness area that has access to an outdoor balconies. And these are little balconies fronting the post road for each apartment. And these are little balconies facing our courtyard for these apartments. These are private balconies. Next floor, please. And basically we use the same concept. Little balconies out, at each levels, and we have amenity spaces here. We have another amenity spaces here throughout. So then this way, folks don't feel like if they come home, they wanna go using the lounging area or if, instead of going to the city, or if you wanna, go do a little bit of work, so you have all these little co-working spaces where you can go and do different things. Or you can go downstairs and use our restaurant and or go to the parks. The next floor, please. Similarly, this is where we step back the building, where we created outdoor balconies above the third floor. So basically what this does, it set back the massing. Along Lindbergh, another 4 feet, along the post road, another 4 feet, and then similar strategy along Fairfield Place and next along 37 Fairfield Place, and same thing here. And the upper floor, the last floor is the activated roof line. In our code review, we had a penthouse, and the recommendation was to remove it because the intent was eventually, if we were to extend the design commercial district, we would probably go to a 4-story, and the penthouse was considered as a 5th story, so we decided not to include it in this application. Instead of asking to build a building that is 5-story, we eliminated that to comply just in case. So in this roof area, we don't have any fully enclosed heated space. These are all outdoor spaces with pergolas. This is like an endless post, only one person can use it. And then this whole area, more than half of our roof is essentially an extensive solar array system that will allow us to reduce some on-site energy consumption. And we created all these edges, these green edges along the rooftop. Essentially, the idea behind them is to keep people from the edges of the building, so that create a buffer, and that can also afford some of our neighbors a level of privacy. These are an average 3 to 4 feet. I think that should probably do it.
Did you review the landscaping plan, Mark?
So as far as the landscape,
Let's see if we have questions on architecture first, then
Sure.
the landscaping, if that's okay. Mr. Harrison, did you have
I'm
any?
actually okay now, yeah.
And any questions for architecture?
I have a
Yes.
question.
Mind if she goes
Can you hear me?
on, go ahead.
Could you summarize the changes between this one and the concept review we looked at last January? Just give a summary of what the major changes are. Whether it's design, shape, size, amenities.
The general concept is basically the same. What we did, we improved the overall design, the massing of the building, and we play with different finishes. So in the code in the pre-app, we had a facade that has a lot more brick. I think in our submission, we showed the rendering from the pre-app into our final rendering. You can see the difference where we play with the different finishes.
And the finish now is what? It looks gray to me. Is it gray or is it red brick, or it looks kind of modern to me?
It is a modern style building.
Sure.
That didn't change? Okay.
We've got sample materials.
I'm not sure she'll be able to see.
I can see it. What is that?
That would be the brick that will be used throughout the development.
Yes, sir. Mr. Andre, why don't you just get a little closer to that?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. For us, we can see it.
Is that gray? Is that gray brick?
It's more tannish.
And about the scale of the building and as it approaches the houses behind it, did that step down more than it did before?
Yes.
And is it further away?
As far as the upper floors, yes. The parking garage footprint did not change.
And is the outside amenity space, I remember last time it seemed like there was a lot of outside amenity space for the residents of this facility. Has that been decreased?
So what we did, we limited above the parking garage facing 37 Fairfield Place, the units that abutting those balconies, those outdoor spaces are restricted. They will only be used by those units and not the general public.
And let's see, is the footprint of the building the same as it was before?
Yes.
And is the height, so you said the height is different. Could you explain that a little bit?
So, so the height, if we did include the penthouse, the height would have been higher. So the proposed height is within the guideline of the P O C D study, so we're not going beyond that.
And what is, so the height of this building is what again? Could you just, is there a vertical setback?
The vertical setback, along the post road, we set back the upper floor in some areas 4 feet and other areas 5 feet.
And what about in the back of the building where the houses are, the other people's houses are? Is that is there? What's the height at the closest point to the houses that are in the neighborhood behind it?
The height is very consistent. That did not change.
And what is that?
We are proposing a 50-foot 6 inches.
Okay, and there's no vertical setback on the, now, is it possible to put a vertical setback around the whole building or no?
We did.
Oh, but not in the back?
We did. So, Emmeline, can you get to SKL 100.3?
SK 103?
SKL 100.3. So actually, another way, I can walk you through the floor plan again, and then I can show you how we set back a lot of the massing, but let's go through the SKL 100.3. That will be a diagrammatic cross section along 37.
Not this one, the other one,
Cross section.
cross section. Sorry. That one?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you, these two sections showing setback along the post road and then setback along 37 Fairfield Place. Along the post road, we maintain a 10-foot setback for the commercial space, 2 apartment floors, and then the 3rd floor apartment is set back 14 to 15 feet. So the last floor is set back from the street.
I'm a little bit confused. I'm not an architect. Explain, is this an aerial view or is this a side, a cross section?
This is a vertical section.
So where are we standing looking at the building?
So if you cut let's say if you cut a section through the building, you slice it. So this is the loggia, that's the covered porch. This is a post road. That's the upper balcony on top of the podium. 1 floor, 2 floors of apartment. This wall here is 10 feet from the property line. And then there's a 4 to 5 foot balcony. So the last floor of apartment is set back from the property line, another 4 to 5 feet for a total of 14 feet to 15 foot setbacks. So the 4th floor is about 14 in some areas and 15 feet away from the property line.
When you showed that was a nice video that you showed, but it was a little bit close up to sort of envision this in the setting, that in the context of the neighborhood. I'm trying to figure out what it looks like standing on Lindbergh or Fairfield Place or any of those side streets. How high, how close is it? How high is it? And where does the vertical setback begin? And how, I'm trying to envision what it looks like when you're standing on one of those side streets.
So what do you mean by vertical setbacks?
You know, when you set it back as you go up in
Right.
in
So
height.
that's what I just described.
I know,
So-
it's just hard to envision from what I'm looking at here. Well, I'll let somebody else ask questions if they have any. It would be nice to see what it looks like sitting there in the neighborhood.
Commissioner Randolph.
You read my mind, because I was gonna ask you about 100.3, because I know what this drawing represents, but it's very specialized. So could you explain what this drawing means, as if no one has ever seen this kind of drawing before? And then basically show how big a person would be in here? And so, for example, where it says 37 5.5.
Oh, okay.
So where it says 37 5.5, Simple question, so to explain to me what we're looking at here, as if I've never seen a drawing like this before.
So basically, if you've never seen this before, imagine a 4-story building, the first 37-foot, 5.5.
Are we looking at something in plan, or are we looking at the side of something?
So let's say look in the side of something.
But not, let's say, we are looking as if you cut through the building.
You cut through the building, but you're looking at the side of the building. So the first 30-foot, 37-foot, 5 inches, where you see.
Where's a person in
Oh,
this?
let him-
Yeah,
let
I'm
him-
just trying to get in there.
No, but he's answering your question, so just let him answer it.
Where's a person in here? Show me how big a person is.
A person, a 5-foot person, a 6-foot person?
6-foot person compared to where it says post road.
I think, Mark, it might be easier if you just show the fence as a reference, cause that's a 6-foot.
Yeah. Actually, if you look at the section along 37 Post Road, that fence is a 6-foot fence.
And how big is a house next to that?
Square footage, why I do not know.
No, height.
I would imagine it's about either a story and a half or 2.5 stories, so that would make it roughly 18 feet plus if they have an attic space, so.
So if you could point to that, how big is a house?
That house, the peak of that house will be above our parking garage floor.
Where that cursor is,
Yeah,
where it was.
it'll be higher than this. Because this parking garage is 15 feet tall. So the first balcony is 15 feet above grade.
So a house would be where that second setback is roughly?
Where the 10-foot is?
Level 3, top of between where it says level 4 roughly?
Just about.
Think of a roof, yeah. That's my only question.
Just about.
I just wanted you to provide some context
Sure.
for how big this was. And so setback means that the wall steps back from the other one, so it's like a zigzag going back.
Correct. So some of you are very familiar with the wedding cake building. So this will be similar to the wedding cake building where the garage, this is 1 story. Then these 1, 2, 3, level 3 is set back from the face of the garage, another, let's say, 6 feet. Just about 6 feet, because this setback is 19'9", let's call it 20. And then this one is 25'3", let's call it 5 feet, so about 25. So this wall is set back from the face of the garage another 5 feet. So that's 2 floors, level 2 and level 3. And then level 4 is set back from the face of the building facing 35 Fairfield Place, another 4 feet. This is 29 feet. So we step in the massing away from 35 Fairfield Place, and we use the similar strategy all the way around on the other side as well.
And what, when you set a building back, what effect does that have on the feeling of the size of the building? Does it make it feel smaller or bigger?
It makes us feel smaller. Because now, your sight line, you increases your sight line, and you have the facade where you don't have this vertical wall, right? So it's breaking that sight line if you were to look straight up.
And you guys also anticipated the other question. So the material is made out of brick. So you got some materials over there. Were you gonna review those with us?
So we have some brick. These are gonna be thin brick, but they're real brick.
Thank you.
We'll be using some masonry. Or some cladding in some areas. That will be at the base. And then most of the materials that we will be using is basically, it's the same materials, but when you flip it, you get different reveal. So the larger reveal will have a smooth finish. So this is exactly the same. If you turn it, you have that smooth finish, and then with the wood grain, we call this a nickel gap. So that's why you will have these little shadows. So when you see our building in the video, you can see the different texture and profile, but it's exactly the same material. So this material is basically, it's a recent material. It's essentially, it's recycled wood. It's fly ash mixed with polymer. Very durable, can be painted any color.
Yeah, and so this
It does not absorb water.
looks like wood.
Correct.
Make it look like, okay.
Correct. That's the whole idea.
It's very sustainable.
Yeah.
Those are all my.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then the reason we have this window here is basically showing that if we have an individual window, the way we would trim it. So you have your regular window, this is gonna be a triple pane glass. So this building, we want it to be very energy efficient. We're using strategy that's gonna reduce runoff, through our plaza, through our activated roof, green roof. And we're using the same material. The siding materials, they also make it into a trim materials, resist, water penetration, decay. And this is the profile of our trim. So you have your typical, most houses have this flat casing, but there's a picture frame on that. And then we add this extra shadow line. In a traditional trimming detail, you might call it a brick mold. That's the same idea, except the shadow line, is more, it projects out a little bit more, and this allows us to either abut any, like a brick materials next to it, without any GA channel or outside siding. And you have a nice, beautiful reveal and nice shadow.
Commissioner Harrison, I have a question.
Yes.
yeah, thank you. And that was a really interesting video that you had, it was great, to illustrate the development. I'm just trying to understand, how far is the distance between the homes that are on like Lindbergh Street, Fairfield Place? Between that and the. No. Oh, okay.
No,
You tell me.
the closest home to our development is actually 3750 Place. Not
So it'd be Fairfield Place.
Yeah.
Okay,
3750 Place is the closest, not 36 Lindbergh.
okay.
So that's why I purposely created a diagrammatic cross section. That would be the closest one.
Okay, so it would. Diagram for that.
So I do have another diagram if you wanted. That would be an SKL 100.2. And in that diagram, and this one's closest.
Yeah, right, okay, sorry. That's okay. It's actually Fairfield Place, okay.
Fairfield, 3750 Place will be the closest. The setback to our building from
The bottom one.
from 36 Lindbergh,
And that's the house here?
that's Fairfield Place.
Yeah, okay, so that's Lindbergh.
No, sorry, that would be Lindbergh, yes. From that house to the L-shaped section of our building, the closest one will be 62 feet.
Okay.
To the other segment of our parking garage, we have 11 foot 9 inches. That's the first floor. So the upper floor is 24 foot 6 inches. That's from the property line.
I know that you did mention screening and I want to acknowledge that, sorry.
Correct.
Yeah.
So at the ground floor, our dumpster, our parking garage, the surface parking garage is screened. We have louvers. The dumpster, the wall, that's why we have the wall area. That's also provides screening. So when you go there, you can barely see where the dumpster will be. And we did all of these things purposely. And we did the landscape design in a way that also augment the architectural design of this building, where we planted those screening areas to provide buffer between our development and the adjacent property.
Do landscaping, questions for architecture?
I may have more, but not right now.
Fine.
So I'm gonna do my best to walk you through our landscape plan. Our landscape designer unfortunately is has some medical issues and he cannot be here. But what we did with our video simulation, we integrated the landscape design in our video simulation. So in our video simulation, it's more an enhanced landscape design where we added few more trees. But the whole idea with the landscape plan, we have some street trees. These are, and we use the native trees. All the street trees, shade trees, they are, I believe they are Armstrong maple trees. We using some boxwood, some ground covers. We're providing privacy screening from the post road, from the sidewalk to the commercial areas, but at the same time maintain visibility to the retail spaces. And what this is really doing is to create a transition between where we have some the dense native places and the boundary lines. And that will afford privacies to our neighbors, and we use the same strategies throughout. And the lighting plan is pretty, these are different rendition from the landscape plan, but in our video simulation, we added few more trees from our original landscape plan. But the concept here is basically what you see here. We already provided you the landscape plan with the quantity. That's what we're proposing to build. In addition to some of the street trees that we added on Lindbergh. And what these are doing is basically creating layers. We have these boxwoods. So if you walk in here and then you have regular pedestrians, so these give you some kind of separation, but still open enough so you can see what's going on in those retail spaces. This is just an enlarged area of the lower public plaza. These are like little benches. So this is public access. So it will be a lot of circulation here. And then in this area, that's a covered area where we would put tables and chairs. That would be for the outdoor dining. And I think the idea behind this, that's the rooftop. Once this whole thing is engineered, so our plan is to build this green roof, and where we created all these buffer along the edges to prevent our tenants from going along the edges. And then obviously this is the solar array. And then this is a rendition from our landscape designer showing the same thing that we did in our video simulation. So there's no difference between our approach when it comes to the landscape design. What we try to do is provide privacies. We try to provide areas, outdoor areas where our tenant can use themselves or where they can interact with some folks within the community. That would be through our mini park, the pocket park, through our plazas at the ground level. And then the upper levels, whether these are little balconies or the rooftop, these all will be restricted only to our tenants. They're not open to the public. And there's a lighting plan. The lighting plan is very simple. We have mostly down lights. We have some up light, but the lumens maximum for any of these they're no more than 1,000 lumens. So these will meet the dark sky requirement.
Commissioner Corsillo.
You mentioned a couple times that the video had enhanced plantings beyond what's in the plan. Was it your intent to submit a revised plan that incorporates this?
We certainly I think we might have done that already, but we certainly can
Make sure that we do that.
Yes.
Or do that.
And the areas where we did it basically was along the property line between 37 Fairfield Place and 36 Lindbergh Street. Because in our current plan, there were some pockets opening, so we filled them in.
Commissioner Harrison?
You had mentioned earlier in the presentation that the open space was semi-public. What does that mean?
So the mini park semi-public means that we would restrict access to the general public, except our tenant.
So, okay,
So
just-
meaning that, let's say we might allow people to go in, there's a gate, it's a gated area. So anyone in the neighborhood can actually go into that space, let's say after 8 AM, and then probably by sundown, which could be 6 PM, then they would not be able to have access to that space. So be restricted.
that would be
I haven't
locked?
figured out the schedule yet, but that's the general concept.
Got it.
Whereas a plaza, it's open to anybody can hang out there.
What would happen at the plaza? Like what kind of?
The front
activities?
plaza,
Yeah, what kind of activities?
it's open to the public. I mean, kids can hang out there, you know, I mean, currently, there's no sidewalk along Fairfield Place, there's no sidewalk along Lindbergh Street. So what we did, we created this winding pathways that leads you to our pocket park, and the pocket park connects Fairfield Place to Lindbergh, right? So there will be some different little interesting moment happening as you go through this little mini park, right? And the upper plaza and the lower plaza is connected through the covered area and the regular sidewalk. And we put a lot of trees there. So if someone coming from the train station, you know, they can either use our facilities, and at some point, you know, currently on Lindbergh, there's no sidewalk. So they'd be able to walk through, and then once they leave our development, then you know, go back on the street again. So there's no restriction as far as, you know, the plaza is concerned.
And as far as vehicular traffic, I understand the ingress is on Lindbergh and the egress is on Fairfield Place.
Correct.
And those would both be one way in or any of them,
So their egress on Lindbergh is one way, and egress on Fairfield Place is also one way. I think the difference, when you exit on Fairfield Place, currently, there is no restriction whether you make a left turn or right turn. On Lindbergh, there's only one way in. So if you come in out of our parking garage, so you cannot make a left turn to exit out until Lindbergh Street. You have to loop into our courtyard, so we can create a continuous loop in the underground parking garage, or we can do the same thing, connecting the underground to the upper. If you exit on Fairfield Place, then if either you make a left turn on Fairfield Place and go around, come down on Lindbergh, or you make a right turn on Fairfield Place, you go on the Post Road, then you loop around on Lindbergh, then you go back into our development. But because the way the vehicular pattern is within our development, there's no need for you to even do that to re-enter our development, because you can have that continuous loop either at the underground parking garage or the underground connecting to the upper. So you can have that continuous loop without ever leaving our parking garage, our facility.
Will your traffic engineer be doing a more?
Correct.
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
okay, okay.
yes.
So I won't ask any questions on that yet. Okay.
That will be beyond my pay grade.
So you go ahead.
Can I switch spots with you, please, Ellen?
Yeah.
So, Mary Fallon, clock has not been put back, it's 9:10-ish. Say just how much more, what do you think you have?
I'd like to review the amendments with you right now and then see where we are. I'd rather not bifurcate the traffic engineer's presentation, so let's see where we go. I mean,
Right, and I'll say this just to the general public, we have a curfew at 10 o'clock, which we generally try to abide by, especially nowadays with multiple hearings that we've been having. That obviously doesn't mean that we're done, we would continue this hearing for public comment, we'll either finish the presentation, start public comment and finish it not next week, 2 weeks from now, right, Mr. Nguyen?
December 3.
December 3. So of course we'd all the member of the public wishes to be heard, would be heard. And I just wanted to get that out there now at 9:15-ish. That we have a 10 o'clock curfew that we're gonna stick with.
So what I'd like to do, I guess as I turn to the actual amendments, I do think it's important in the context of reviewing this application to state the obvious. And these are the amendments that are already part of your record, but just so you don't have to scurry around.
That'd be great, thank you.
I thought I would give them to everybody. But
Pass them.
yeah, I'll pass them. As we look at this application in the context of the area and the neighborhood, I do think it's important to point out that we are seeking a zone change to the Center Design Business District, and we do that not only to accommodate what we want to accomplish, but also to be responsive to the at least recommendation in the draft plan of conservation and development about the extension of the Center Design District into this area. But this property is zoned commercial. This property is now located in the Design Commercial District. So this is not a situation, and we have tried, as Mr. Andre indicates, we're sensitive to our neighbors on Lindbergh and Fairfield Place. We want to continue to be sensitive to them. However, it is commercially zoned property. So we're not coming before you seeking to rezone residentially zoned property. This property has been commercial for decades and decades. And what really is at, front and center here is, do we want to enhance this commercially zoned property in this gateway area of town? And I think we do and we should. So let me briefly kind of go over these amendments with you. 12.3.16 will it allow residential use to be located on the ground floor? That's a direct recommendation of your draft POCD. We did under 12.7.6.1, that's in a new addition. And it is designed basically to accommodate what we're trying to do here relative to allowing that on a lot fronting on 3 or more public streets, the setback from all property lines will be 10 feet. Similarly, we're adding a new section 12.7.6.2, that would say that subject to the provisions of the existing section 12.7.6.6, that a lot fronting on 3 or more public streets, the side property line will also be 10 feet. If that seems a little redundant, it's simply because by adding section 12.7.6.1, we wanted to make sure we were consistent with the existing section 12.7.6.6. Technical, but that's why it is. 12.7.4 under height, as Mark has indicated, we wanted to be consistent with the POCD recommendation, and therefore we're limiting the height to 52 feet. That, of course, meant we were going to eliminate that penthouse, and we did that. Section 12.7.6.4, again, because of the unique nature of this lot where we are fronting on 3 public streets, we again emphasize in that section that the street setback from the property lines shall be 10 feet. We're adding a section 12.7.6.6 that any proposed fourth story shall be set back an additional 4 feet along any street line. And that's again consistent with what Mark was discussing in terms of trying to step the building back. We do add some exclusions to that for purposes of the things that are articulated in there, like chimneys and balconies and the likes. Section 12.7.6.5.2 is an existing regulation. We just are eliminating the reference to ground level open porches because we would like to have those. And we're also adding language at the end about open porches being able to project more than 7 feet into the area required for setback from a street line. Again, basically to facilitate the design that we're proposing. Section 12.7.5.2 In terms of FAR, that is consistent with the POCD recommendation. And then there's the one that I talked about before. At your discretion, we are suggesting under 25.7.9, which is new, that in a mixed use development in the Center Design Business District, the amount of affordable units will be 20% of said units below market rate BMR units as referenced above. And that references you back to section 12.3.16. Again, we think that is a commitment that these clients have to affordable housing in Fairfield, which I think is admirable. Again, 28.6.1, we are suggesting, again, consistent with your recommendation in the POCD draft, that the parking requirement for residential parking be in the Center Design Business District be one space for one bedroom, and studio units shall be 1.25 spaces per unit. And we do comply with that, obviously. And lastly, we address at section 28.6.12 restaurant use. And again, consistent with the recommendation of the draft POCD, we are suggesting that one space for each 250 square feet of patron floor area or portion thereof. And that there's no additional parking required for the first 400 square feet of outdoor dining. In addition, there's a requirement in there that we may reduce by one space the parking requirement for every 250 square feet of public plaza area that we provide. Again, this is to incentivize developers to create public plaza spaces that, you know, whether or not they involve the restaurant or not, will benefit public access and the like. And then lastly, we just in section 31.2.16, which is your definition of height, we add some language just to ensure that we are protecting ourselves in terms of some of the rooftop amenities that we want to provide as part of this development. So those are the amendments, and as I said before, they're generally in terms of the real substantive ones, consistent, we believe, with the provisions and recommendations of longstanding. I know your plan of conservation development has been ongoing, but these recommendations that I've outlined were things that I think have been consistently within your drafts as you move forward. So I think at this.
Attorney Fallon, let me ask a few questions on the regs. These regulation amendments are assuming that we make the change from
The zone.
design commercial to center design.
Right.
Okay, that's the obvious one. Can you, for a few of the items, go through setback and floor density, can you kind of explain, this is not something, an exercise that I wanna do myself, and maybe we can do together, is what is currently allowed there versus what, if we adopted everything, what would be changed?
Right, and
For example, height, what is currently allowed there?
right, right now,
You mean in a design business or?
No, that's a fair question. So in the
In the
design commercial district, what is currently allowed there? In the design commercial district?
okay, for
Versus, what I wanna know is, we have the status right now currently, design commercial,
right,
and now you have an amendment to what you wanna seek.
right.
Well, just if we can go through some basic ones of what's currently
Yeah, I
allowed.
can do that, or what might be easier, since we know, if you want, I can prepare and submit to staff, so you have it in advance of the next hearing, a comparative chart. I mean, I can do either, whatever you want.
both?
Huh?
We do both?
Now,
Can we
let's,
do both?
well, I would like to.
I may not be ready for the test yet.
No,
Yes, we
and
can do
I
both.
and I
Yeah,
acknowledge
we
that this
can.
is kind of a pop quiz, so to
No,
speak.
no,
You're
we can do it.
frankly in better position than I am.
Right.
But let's go through at least some basic ones, because I would like to know,
Okay, so
but like
let's-
height,
let-
for example.
Okay, so let's start right now with this, right now in the design commercial district, the height limitation, I believe, Mr. Nguyen, is 40?
4 stories, 40 feet.
4 stories or 40 feet. Right now in the center design district, it's 4 stories or 50 feet.
Yeah, let's do the three then.
Okay,
Current
and
for-
5 stories and 50 feet. And so what we would be doing here, we'd be increasing that height allowance in the center to 52 feet. And if you wanna compare that to the design commercial district, that's 40 feet.
Okay, no, that's good. We should be doing maybe 3 then.
Hmm? Oh, is it? The comparison?
For the design commercial.
Oh, okay. I'm advised by Mr. Andre that on the site plan we submitted to you, he did submit a grid that kind of shows the comparison.
Okay.
Happy to keep going through it, but that's,
Just some basic ones. So I mean, we
so
should
that's
add,
why,
and we should add the 3, the current design commercial, the current center design, and then what you're seeking.
the first one is easy. In the design commercial district now and in the center design district, for mixed use, you have a provision that prohibits ground floor occupancy and limits the total floor area to 50% unless you're in the overlay zone, which is when it's 70%, but having
We don't
said,
need to go through all the, especially, but I just wanted to go through heights and then maybe setbacks.
Mhm.
What is this?
I'd wanna look at the,
If you don't have it in front of you, maybe.
Where's the chart?
where's the chart?
Page 3.
Let's see what we have, and then instead of doing a pop quiz, maybe let's go through what we would like to see.
Or do you want this one or the one that,
This is a different chart.
okay, then it's further down, I
And
think.
master, it's slide 22.
Slide 22?
Is it this one?
No.
So if you go to the actual survey, ECL 102.
Yeah, you were there. That's it.
That's
So-
in the master.
Yeah. So those grids are the actual zoning for the design commercial district.
And the center. Well, that's the design.
Then I think we had submitted another site plan showing the proposed building. Where we show the proposed setback for the new zone that we're looking to change.
Maybe it's worth, and after seeing this, maybe it's worth doing this. Why don't we take a look on your survey, your documents to see what's been there already? And a summary, even if it's redoing it in a summary page to put in the record.
Sure.
Ease of commission, the public, everyone.
That's easy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have a sense of what I would look for as far as height, setback, density. What else do we see here? Anything good? Floor area, you know what basic kind of, has to do with
The design requirements.
yeah, the size of the building, you know, what is currently allowed, what's currently allowed in this zone, what's currently allowed in the center design, and what you're doing that. So
Okay.
I think we've done, I mean, and Mr. Nguyen, I think you would have a sense of what I would look for as well, so we can do that. We're definitely coming back a second night, so I think that that kind of summary chart would be helpful for certainly me, public as well.
Where is that now? What page is it?
The master document, it's slide 22. Has blue, the right 2 columns.
What's the, going on the bottom right of that page? Oh, is that?
Oh, I see it.
Find it?
Yes. Look on the bottom right. Yeah, see it though.
It looks like it's cut off.
Might be. Alright, so the master presentation out of 193 pages, it's page 22 is what you initially see. But Mr. Nguyen and Attorney Fallon, don't mind working through that.
It's easy. We're happy to.
So that'll kind of streamline that.
Well, just what we'll do, just so we're on the same page, is we'll take the design requirements, which are typically coverage, FAR, setbacks and height. And we'll give you a chart that says, here's what's currently allowed in the design commercial district. Here's what's currently allowed in the center design district. And here's what would be allowed in the center design business district under our.
And the other column that's in here is what's actually proposed, not the regulations, but the actual building specs.
And the actual, yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And just one possible addition, the height of the adjacent district, so I think we're next to a B
Mm-hmm.
and a next to a B and an A.
I think we're next to B zone, but
But if you could put the height, maximum height for a B and an A, just for points of comparison.
Thank you. Go ahead, I'm looking at the rest, so Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, and just one question on your proposal, the 12.7.6.4. That would be, what does notwithstanding the above, that would be added on to the existing, which deals with the adjacent, correct?
correct.
Okay, so it wouldn't be changing the requirement that you have the setback of the adjacent district unless it's one that fronts onto the side.
Precisely, yes.
Thanks.
Add parking to that, please. Add parking please to that.
I didn't hear.
Add parking to that,
Oh, to our chart?
Yeah,
I'm making my chart, okay.
no, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions for regulation amendments, Commissioner Randolph?
Working backwards from one, so the last page, 31.2.16. Could you add a provision for screening of mechanical?
Yes, is that, I thought, is that in there?
Did I miss that?
Well, if it says except what we've always, except that the elevator machine rooms shall not accept, and then you read on, and all the other equipment not more than 5 feet, or you want to put screening
Screening, yeah.
as opposed to setback?
Well,
Yeah, and, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so screening of mechanical equipment on the rooftop.
Sure.
And then one space for 250, you could also, I think that was requested, I'm working backwards, 28.6.1 too.
Yeah, in other words, show the comparison of current.
Yeah. For parking, and then 28.6.12, you express parking differently at a ratio. 5,
Mm-hmm.
and if you could maybe add what's being done elsewhere.
Currently.
Well, currently, but also what best practices are. Cite other regulations, not necessarily our existing, but.
You mean in other municipalities?
Yes. Okay. And then for the FAR 250, could you do the same thing? Show what the comparison is for under 12.7.5 too.
Again, comparing it to other standards in other municipalities?
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Unusual.
And then for 52 feet, again, I think other municipalities have just proposed updates specifically Algonquin has.
I'm sorry, what was that last one? I'm just making.
Sorry, 12.7. Could you compare that 52 feet to other municipalities as well?
I mean, the height, yeah.
And if municipalities, if you can find those that have been recently been updated, I think it's legacy, so. That's it, thanks.
Any questions on regulation amendments, or can we go to traffic?
I think I would have Mr. Sullivan come up. His firm prepared the report that was submitted to you, and he will give you a brief overview and be happy to answer any questions.
Good evening. For the record, David Sullivan, professional engineer. I manage the traffic and transportation planning group for SLR. This is in New Haven. My office conducted a traffic study. It's you should have a copy. It's dated April 18th, 2024. The study itself was a fairly traditional in terms of what it included. For a traffic impact study, we'll look at
Initially, we'll look at the existing conditions, which includes things like evaluating crash data, collecting traffic volume data and things of that nature. We then take a look at the site. We'll look at things like access, sightline safety, geometry. We'll also look at the traffic generation characteristics, what the site may generate in terms of the number of traffic during the peak hours. We selected for this project to look at the morning commuter peak hour, which is an hour between 7 and 9 during the week. The weekday commuter afternoon peak hour, which is 1 hour between 4 and 6 p.m. And since there's a commercial component, we also looked at Saturday midday. We collected data between 11 and 1 and picked the highest hour in the midday on a Saturday, which again is traditional for these types of uses. Then we look at the future conditions, and the future conditions primarily are looking at what we call background, and that's what would the traffic conditions look like at the future year. In this case, we looked at a projection of 2026, and what would the traffic look like if this project does not come to fruition. We then estimate the traffic that will be generated, and we figure out which way they're going to be coming and going from. Put those traffic volumes on our analysis intersections, add them to the background, and we get what we call combined, or traditionally maybe known as the build traffic volumes. We do a series of analyses of the combined, compare them to the analyses that we do for the background, compare the results. Changes in the results are the traditional traffic impact. So that's our process. A couple of the details of the study itself are our study area included the 2 signals on the post road in either direction, the north and south Pine Creek Road, traffic signals. And then of course, we also looked at the 2 intersections adjacent to the site.
Stop that. Yeah, it's just because it's been, whatever that beeping is, if it's somebody's phone, if you can please just silence it, turn it off. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The counts were done in January and February of last year, January 31st, February 1st during the week, and February 3rd was a Saturday. And to get to the background, we took those traffic volumes and we talked with the Department of Transportation Bureau of Policy and Planning, and they tell us how to get that to 2026 from 2024. In this case, that we were told to grow them each year by 0.6%, or a total of 1.2% to get to our design year. In terms of the, I guess the next thing is the analysis itself. I'll talk a little bit about that. The analysis, when we develop these models, the results come out in terms of level of service. Level of service are like report card grades from A to F. A is, and they're based on the amount of delay. So level of service A is a condition where you pull up to an intersection and you come to a full stop, presumably, and move on. Level of service F would be what you might experience when you go to a traffic light and you have to sit there for 1 or 2 cycles or sometimes even more. But that would be level of service F. What we like to have in the peak hours is overall levels of service somewhere in the C to D range during peak hours. So that's what we're targeting. So we did these analyses. We did them for background. We did them for combined. We at all 4 of the intersections as well as the site driveway intersections. And overall, we found very good levels of service, and the overall levels of service did not diminish from the adding the site traffic. The access to the site, just to reiterate what we talked about, is entering off of Lindbergh and exiting onto Fairfield Place. And so when we look at safety for the entering vehicles, we wanna look at the, what we call the stopping sight distance. So if somebody turns the corner and they're about to turn into the driveway, we wanna make sure that when they're slowing down to make that right turn, the cars that are coming up behind them can see them and react and stop in an appropriate amount, an appropriate distance or amount of time. And we found in this case that that is the case. The stopping sight distance required for the speed coming around that corner, somewhere around 75 feet, and we have over 100 feet of visibility to the turning vehicle. On Fairfield Place, what we're looking at also is the driver coming out of the driveway, what his visibility is. So can he see the cars and make a judgment to go out into the traffic stream and make an intelligent judgment and not rely on them having to stop. Sometimes we do rely on them having to stop as well. And in this case, both are met. So looking to the left, sight distance is fine for the posted and even above the posted speed limit. You can see plenty of distance. To the right, you can see to the intersection, at which point you can see the cars as they're making their turn, coming at a reduced rate of speed as you make the turn, and you have the visibility to make those turns. So the safety,
Quick question on line of sight. You use stopping sight distance, why not, what is it, IST is the counterpart, right?
counterpart is IST.
Why not use IST?
We did use IST on Fairfield Place. On Lindbergh, there's nobody coming out. So there's nobody to look.
Thank you.
So the recommendations we have really are all to reinforce what we think is important here to maintain appropriate visibility for vehicles. So any low-hanging tree branches or overgrowth of ground vegetation and things has to be maintained so that visibility to either driveway does not get blocked. And then we have some recommendations on a couple of no parking things. So at the driveways, 15-foot no parking area should be maintained so that as you're coming in or out of those driveways, you don't get blocked by the by a car parked right up to it. And also it tends to diminish the radii if the car's parked too close to the intersection. So we think 15 feet at the driveway intersections with the two town roads, and where those two roads intersect US Route 1, we would suggest a 25-foot no parking zone, just to keep those a little bit more clear for the same reasons. And lastly, the signage on internal signage has to be reviewed, make sure we have proper one-way signs, proper do not enters where we need them, and of course a stop sign at the end of the driveway. So signage, no parking, and maintain the sight lines. And that is, in a nutshell, the traffic report.
Mr. Levy.
Yeah, a vehicle exiting onto Fairfield Place, is there anything, any buildings or trees that would obstruct view with a post road so that you could see a car going from west to east that would be turning into Fairfield Place? In other words, can you see the incoming traffic as you're exiting Fairfield Place?
You can, I believe we calculated that, let me see if it's in the report here. I think it was approximately 115 feet or so that you could initially see that vehicle.
And you can see the traffic on the post road from there?
Yes, so you can see the post road traffic turning into Fairfield Place. Just says, in here, it just says over 100 feet. We could certainly refine that and give you the full distance of the travel path of that vehicle, how many feet it has to travel before we get to that driveway.
Commissioner Harrison.
And this, just to confirm, the traffic study that was done January 31st, 2024 to February 1st.
Yes, well, the January 31st, first and the third.
This year.
or fourth.
Yeah.
So it was a Tuesday, Wednesday and Saturday, not the in-between days.
And this was issued April 18th. Yeah, that's good, thanks.
Commissioner Corsell.
Thank you. I have two questions. So, according to your trip gen projections, what proportion or percentage of the total trips that are gonna be generated would be coming from the retail uses versus the residential?
Okay, that's a good question and not quite as easy to pick out of here as you would think it would be. Let me give you in general the total trips coming in and out of the site. In the weekday morning, there's a Post Coffee Shop that obviously would generate most of the traffic. So 100 out of 120 trips would be the coffee shop. And in the weekday afternoon, it's kind of a split. You know, you start getting some restaurant traffic, you have more residential coming in, and you also have the coffee shop still. It's according to statistics, it generates all day long, and many of them do nowadays. And then the general retail starts to kick in a little bit more. So we have a total of 95 trips, which is residential 20, coffee shop 35, restaurant 30, and general retail 10. So it's kind of a mixture. On Saturday, the coffee shop and the restaurant take over. So 100 out of 125 are the coffee and restaurant. So the reason I said it's not so clear is because those commercial uses have a pass-by component. We assume conservatively that 20% of the traffic going to those commercial components is pass-by. Something like a coffee shop is probably over 50%. So we're being conservative here on how we're estimating this.
Those numbers that you mentioned assume that everyone's driving, or those with
Those are everyone driving. And for our analysis, we took a TOD and an internal capture reduction of a total of 25 trips. 25 in the morning, on a Saturday, and 20 in the afternoon. So that we took that reduction, but that comes from a mixture of the residential and the commercial uses. And then we took the commercial pass by, which means you're on your way to work, you're already on a post road, and you're gonna jump in the curb, pull over, park, grab your coffee and be on your way. So it's a trip to the coffee shop, but it's not a new trip to the post road. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but in general, I think the commercial is the driver of the traffic in general for this development.
one other question. I think.
Go ahead.
You talked about the no parking restriction near the intersections to assist with sight lines. Have you considered or even discussed with the town extending the sidewalk into the right of way to physically restrict that? And then I think I don't know if it's feasible here, but when it can be done, I think the other benefit of that is it helps with pedestrian safety, pedestrian visibility, and also reduces the crossing distance for pedestrians. So
Do you mean, Commissioner, just so I understand, a crosswalk?
no, so
Curb extensions.
basically a bump out. So yeah, in the 15 or 25 feet or however long, rather than just having signage, physically bumping the sidewalk out into the.
We've discussed this, I think, in other applications. I think I remember, so I know what you're talking.
Yeah, we'll look at it, sometimes you if it's the lone curb extension, sometimes it creates more of a hazard. But I think in this case, if we're doing it around the whole corner, particularly with Route 1, we'll look at it with Mark and
We'll analyze it, and when we come back December, we'll give you our thoughts. Right, Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Harrison?
I had a question. Did you analyze any data, like how the the cars or any additional traffic may impact like Lindbergh's, like South Pine Creek or Sasko Hill Road. Cause I feel like these side streets could be used as cut throughs. Over Hill Road and Sasko Hill, did you analyze it?
We did look at, we made an estimate of where the traffic is gonna go. And our study analysis intersections went out to Sasko Hill and went out to South Pine Creek. So at those two intersections, people turning, going straight, going through, those were all considered and analyzed.
Do you think that'll have any kind of impact?
We found no change in the levels of service.
Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you for your presentation. You briefly mentioned your qualifications. Could you just repeat those? Are you specialized in traffic engineering matters?
Yes,
How long have you been doing that?
I have to admit it.
Yes. You can round.
Almost 40 years.
40 years, okay. And so the analysis you conducted, is that in compliance with federal and state standards?
Well, the procedures themselves are not codified. So there's not a standard, there's a protocol, that an industry protocol. So yes.
But it's in compliance with CT dot, the same measures.
Generally speaking, yes, CT dot has many different codified protocols for different reasons. For instance, their Office of State Traffic Administration has a checklist that you have to abide by. Some towns actually have checklists. There's not one.
So your analysis is the same as you do other places. That's what I'm just trying to get at.
Yes, absolutely.
And table number 1, could you just walk us through that? Because which addresses crash data summary. And just describe what the information contained therein, and then if you could highlight the post road at Pine Creek, where it seems like there's the largest number of incidents, and how this development might impact that, if at all.
Okay, so excuse me. So what we look at when we're evaluating crash data, in this particular one, we're looking at 5 years worth of data. It used to be 3 years, and then when the pandemic hit, we started doing 5 years, so that we had 3 years that were pandemic induced. The industry will probably go back to 3 years again. Now that's probably 3 years of good data past that. Nonetheless, we're looking at 5 data here, 5 years of data here. So the things we're looking at is 2 things in particular. The number or frequency of accidents and the pattern of accidents. So if there's anything unusual that stands out. And then we're looking at the severity of accidents to see if there's some pattern that's unusual where there's more severity. So the left side of the numbers where it says type of collision, these are fairly typical of what you see generally in an urban arterial where there's curb cuts, side streets that are unsignalized. You're gonna see rear end accidents, you're gonna see side swipe accidents, and you're gonna see angled accidents. Now, the side swipe accidents in this particular section of road is because you have 2 lanes, and that inside lane is if you get behind somebody taking a left turn, you're gonna try to jog out, and that's where a lot of those side swipes happen in this particular environment. Which, by the way, is the reason the state has come with this. They have a new plan which will be implemented, for the construction next summer, but they're gonna get rid of the 2 lanes and have make a left turn lane in both directions, which should address a lot of the side swipes. Nonetheless, what we find is out of the 66 collisions which took place in that whole section of road in 5 years, That's about 12 a year for a fairly big stretch, including 2 signalized intersections, and a lot of unsignalized. The
That's
frequency to
66 over 5 years, you're saying.
yes, is not a high number. The numbers that would start to concern us if a single intersection had 15 or 20 accidents and it wasn't like this tremendously high volume intersection. So that part of it we're fine with. The next thing is we're looking at severity. In this case, out of the 66 accidents, 54 were property damage only. What that tells us is these are low speed accidents and not the type of accidents where we'd be concerned about severe injuries. There were some injuries. There were 4, which they call now suspected minor injuries, meaning the officer might have said something, but they refused, didn't want to go anywhere. Oh yeah, my arm hurts a little bit. 1 suspected serious injury, and 7 of them were possible injury, which not quite sure how you define a possible injury. So the severity index is very low. So when we look at it in general for this section of corridor, nothing stands out as something that, number 1, we need to address, and number 2, that we're exacerbating or creating. For the intersection in particular, again, we're looking at Post Road or Pine Creek Road, 31 accidents, 5 years, that's 6 accidents. Again, most of these are angle accidents and rear end accidents. There are some side swipes as well. And again, typical pattern that you would see. Frequency is not atypical for a signalized intersection. With the traffic volume, I'm not sure where else. I mean, that's how I would look at this if I was in the office discussing it,
You've answered my question. I appreciate it. And in the interest of time, we're running out of time here. Just, can you go through the capacity analysis summary? Just summarize that again. You described it, that's table 3. And just describe what letter grades mean. We all aspire to A's, but
okay, I'll tell you.
Traffic engineers don't necessarily aspire to A's, right?
We
you aspire to A's, but A's are difficult to achieve. What's the minimum level of service for traffic capacity?
Okay, trying to find my.
Page 6.
So, level of service A.
Could you just say what the minimum is before you have to make a remediation? Is it not D?
Well, you don't ever have to make remediation. So what you look for in general is when the capacity gets to a point where the operations create a safety issue.
Right.
So for instance, if it was a traffic signal on an off ramp, many times even if it's level service D or E or even F for parts of time, it might not be something that needs to be addressed immediately or because of an impact if the backup from that level of service F is not getting to where it's creating a safety issue. When it creates a safety issue is you don't have enough storage and all of a sudden cars are backed up on I-95, for example. So
Mr. Sullivan, do we have any situations in looking at your report in the chart where such safety issues arise based upon the level of service analysis?
no, as a matter of fact, our overall levels of service, which is combined, are all A's and B's, which are very good. There are some individual movements that are mostly C's, but there are a couple of D movements. I'll give you some examples. One private driveway is on the cusp of D and E. We're not adding any traffic to the driveway, obviously. It's opposite Lindbergh, but it's on the cusp of D and E. That's it. North Pine Creek Road at the signal. The northbound left is D in some hours and E in some. Again, that's we're not changing it or impacting it, or there's no residual safety issues being created or exacerbated.
And just to clarify, the reason there's not a significant change is why is there not a significant change in the level of traffic after you put the proposed, after you model it with the proposed volume, what change to it?
Well, there's no Fs, first of all, but because there's not enough traffic to change it.
There's not enough traffic based upon what assumptions?
The assumptions of how much traffic is being generated by this development.
According to
The Institute of Transportation Engineers, trip generation publication.
which is who relies on that document?
The entire industry.
Okay. So in your professional opinion, that's a reliable source of information?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison, and then we'll probably adjourn.
Yeah, I know that we're approaching the curfew, and sorry to keep you, but with the restaurant there, I guess would that, I'm gonna assume some patrons would probably park on the side, on the post road. Would that impact any line of sight?
No, for, well, two reasons. One, parked areas and parked vehicles are not really considered a sightline restriction because they're not permanent. So they, unfortunately, that I should say, fortunately, otherwise you would have no parking anywhere in downtowns. There's always parked vehicles. So the state has made that decision and the industry in general does not assume that. What is more concerning for us is when they're parking up close to the intersection. So then what it's doing is restricting the ability to make that turn as the intersections were designed with the proper radii. Because if there's a car right there, you don't have that ability to make that smooth. And secondarily, it does open up your line of sight somewhat. But it's not like that 25 feet is gonna give you 300 feet of sight line. That 25 feet will before a parked car is in your view. But yes, there will be parking.
Alright, I guess what comes to mind is, I think of, when restaurants are busy, it's like 5, 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock, and I hear, you think about the traffic coming, cause that is traffic in that area. It's a very busy area, okay, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, I think we're gonna need you back on the seminar now, because I have a few questions myself.
Can you, Mr. Sullivan, can you submit through Mr. Wendt to the record your resume and Mr. Olinsky's resume? So that's part of the record. You can just give that to Mr. Wendt. See, that's made part of the record.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we put our curfew at 10. The applicant is still going through its initial presentation. After the applicant is done, we'll turn to public comments. We have been getting emails and letters from the public. I just saw one at 6:21. The commission and I do read those. We do take them into account. They're the same weight as if somebody came up and spoke. So feel free to send those emails or letters. I would ask if you can please send it to the TPZ commission at fairfieldct.org. Please, we don't need to send. We have a process of sending it to that TPZ email and then it gets distributed. It's a little more streamlined. Please don't email. It will always be part of the record, yeah, but you don't need to email us directly, just that TPZ email. That way we know everything's going through TPZ and then gets to us. Of course, if you submit a letter, you're free to still present. I'd ask you not to read it into the record if we already have it or not be too duplicative of it. As you can see, we have a good amount of crowd here. We have the application going, so we're just trying to be efficient use of our time. I think that's just about it. December 3rd. So I will adjourn this meeting and this hearing will be. Thank you, everyone.